To order. My name is Joe McGivern, Chair of the Holyoke City Council's Finance Subcommittee. Members of the committee, to my left is Councilor Kevin Jordan, to my right, Councilor Peter Tallman. A fourth member is Councilor Will Pello, is joining us on Zoom. Our fifth member will not be with us this evening, who is Councilor Juan Anderson Burgos, so there'll be the four of us. We are also joined in the audience by Councilor David Bartley, and at the moment, I believe that's it. We have a very hefty agenda. We are on Zoom, being recorded. We are on live access cable network. We are being streamed. We are not hybrid. We are hybrid, so we'll be taking a little bit more roll call votes. But we're going to do a quick little motion to say all incidental, motions can be just one roll call vote. And then we'll just take the roll calls for the final. If all in favor?
So moved.
Any
Aye.
opposed? So moved. That was a roll call to our administrative assistant. Councilor Bartley.
Can I raise 2 points of order, completely unrelated?
Yeah.
To start, okay. The first one is, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I did give a series, as the chair knows, I've just got some time constraints as a chair, but I raised a couple of questions, and just for the public. Agenda items 7, 8, 13, 14, and 15 are all transfers from cannabis stabilization to various items. Some of them are total $921,000. It's my hope that these will be taken up as a package. I've also given a series of questions to committee members that I hope they'll be asked. That's just one point of order, and I appreciate the chair's discretion. The second point of order is relative to what I understood from the council president was that all items in the jacket were going to be posted on an agenda. Now, in the committee that I'm on, and committees that I'm on, that was the case, but I don't see them, maybe, because I know the chairman is very efficient, maybe there are no items in the jacket that are outstanding in finance, but I'm just wondering if the chair could just address, are there items outstanding in finance? If so, why aren't they on the agenda as tabled items?
We have acted on just about everything in committee once. Okay, so those items do not have to appear on any agenda. I believe, Councilor Bartley, I believe you're referring to Rule 9.
Joe, I don't know.
Whatever, I don't know what it is.
Not 9. No, that was our favorite rule from the last meeting.
Yeah.
That we had to torture ourselves for a 2-hour subcommittee meeting in City Council.
Okay.
But I'm just referring to.
I have not talked to the president about this, so I'm not too sure if we're in compliance with his direction or not.
Well, that's a fair answer. So
Yeah,
I'll
but
ask for.
I will look into it. We want to certainly keep on a level playing field with all committees.
Mm-hmm.
But, the last I looked, and I also have been talking with the administrative assistant about a better way to do this. And I think it's important to have all those items on, or should we say, in a position where they can be easily looked at by not just us, but by the public at large. So he's working on something which is way beyond my skill, Councilor Bartley, but something where they can be filed and a link will be available to all committees so that people can check this.
And if I may, I like that idea a lot, and I prefer it to adding more and more pages by diktat, which is what seems to be happening with. I mean, why would the administrative assistant do this? And the chair, unless it was coming from somewhere. And if you're on this agenda, so you're saying to me you've taken up orders that they are in the jacket, but I don't see them here tabled on the agenda. So I would rather just.
And for the record, I oppose that idea of doing it that way. I think there's a better way to do it, but I oppose
think the one you
it.
just raised is
I oppose it because we did it once, and it sends a confusing message to not only the public, but to department heads and other members of our workforce that we're taking those items up tonight, whereas we're not.
That's right.
And that to me is got to be worked out. So
Thank you.
I have not had a chance to talk to the president, but I will do that, and I appreciate you so we can clarify that. We do have a hefty agenda. We have a lot of guests. I know you're all anxious to get in and get out. We got to do a little bit of shuffling around, but we can only do so much, and we will be as quick as we can. And I wish it wasn't necessary, but this is not everything that came into the Finance Committee at our last meeting or at our prior meetings. We already have a half agenda set for our next meeting, which will be March 1st, which is going to include inviting back some people of items that, are in the jacket and tabled that we are waiting for reports and things like that nature. And of course, all the requests for transfers and grants that come in the first time. With that in mind, let's get this meeting going.
I would take a motion to take items number 1 and 1A off the table.
Motion made second to take 1 and 1A off the table as a package. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? So moved. 1 is an order that was reported out of committee and returned to the committee by the full city council, introduced originally by Council Israel Rivera, who is our representative to the CPA committee itself. And this was an order that the Honorable City Council approve the increase of a $3,000 amount to the Wisteriors Museum for their painting restoration project. Originally, Wisteriors applied for the grant, $125,000 via CPA to complete the project, but due to rising costs in building materials across the nation, they now need the additional $3,000 to be complete to go out for the RFP, is my understanding. We also referred it to the city solicitor to give us an opinion on certain items that were raised by a number of councilors, including Councilor Jordan, about does this money qualify for CPA, and more specifically to address the issue of Mass General Law referring to maintenance. So we also have a 1A, which is information received from a department head, this being in legal opinion, legal advisory from Kathleen Degan, who was with us on Zoom tonight. So under discussion, I suggest perhaps we go right to our Assistant City Solicitor, and just if everybody wants to ask questions about the opinion, or we can go forward whichever way the committee wants.
Is she here?
She is online.
Okay.
Kathleen, are you with us? I saw.
I am, Counselor.
Thank you.
Good evening, Counselors.
Thank you for taking the time to research this. I know you met with members of the CPA, I think their chair. I know you met with Megan Sealer from Wisteria Hearst. Megan Sealer is also online with this evening. Megan McGrath is not, but I was well aware of that. And I said mostly this is on the agenda as instructed by the City Council to go over the legal opinion and to see if we can go forward with it. So Kathleen, can you just walk us through your opinion real quick? We've all had a copy of it for since last week, I think.
Certainly. There is no, as I said in my opinion, there is no Massachusetts case law with respect to the question of whether painting is classified as maintenance. And what I was able to locate was an advisory opinion from the DOR through its Division of Local Services branch. And what they did was kind of interesting. In order to answer the question, they made and they analogized the IRS regulations with the statute in question. And basically what they came up with, and I mentioned in my opinion what the advisory number is, it was dated April 3rd, 2014, and it's item number 2013-1280. And what they did is they kind of looked at it and said, look, from an IRS standpoint, repairs are what we would classify as maintenance under the CPA. And so what we're doing is looking at, in that context, whether or not painting is a repair, i.e. maintenance. Most of the time it is. If we're talking about doing painting to make the site look better, to get rid of peeling paint, that really is maintenance. However, the advisory opinion was interesting because it gave two points of view how painting would not be classified as maintenance. One has to do if it's dealing with a structural, a pretty major structural, I'll say word repair because they used it, but it really isn't. And the second way you could do it is if the city was bringing the building back to its historic color. And, you know, for purposes of, for purposes of, really going out on a limb in terms of how to describe it. I mean, the DLS did that, but the bottom line is, there was a painting analysis that I looked at, and what it indicated was pretty interesting. I know I was told that this building, last time it was painted was 2009. So, what happened here is, according to the study, is that the paint was changing. It was not good quality paint, was what I was told. It was not used, and the color was darkening from its original historic color, and so the CPC is trying to match. That's what they did. They did a match, but I think, at least this is how I interpret the study, that because they're trying to bring it back, lighten it up the way it was in the original cream color, that what they're doing was they were bringing it back to its historic color, because it was originally cream and now it's darker. And I thought that to be rather instructive. And the advisory opinion, if anyone wants to look at it, I've given you the number, but it was a very good example of what might qualify as, allowable under the statute. If you have a color, if the structure is color, let's say brown, and then subsequently the city decided to paint it red, well, that really isn't the historic color. So if we were to return it back to brown, that would mean that you're restoring the historic color of it, and therefore it's not maintenance. It's actually, it's actually something that's allowable under the statute. And I found that advisory to be very, very instructive on that matter, particularly since I didn't have the whole project to look at. It was just the $3,000 for the painting. So that's kind of like an overview, but I can certainly answer questions if there are any.
Just, Kathleen, thank you for the detailed explanation and for the work you put into this. What essentially, the way I'm reading your legal opinion is that the money, CPA money being used for this purpose is allowable.
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you. And just before I go to questions and comments, Megan Sealer, are you with us?
Yes.
Hey, Megan, we've already gone through all the details of Wisteria Hearst a few times now in this particular project, so we're focusing on the legal questions that rose at the last community council meeting. But can you just tell us the deadline for this project, when you expect it to take place? And is there a deadline?
The original, when it went out to bid, the deadline for completion was May 31st. So, really would like to get started as soon as possible and sign that contract, get all the details finalized, and have the prep work started as soon as possible.
Okay. And is this $3,000 addition holding you up from signing the contract?
Yes. I've talked to Tanya in the auditor's office, and we have the money now secured from the foundation. We have the $125,000 from CPA, and it was the additional $3,000 that we are waiting on a final judgment for to move forward with the project.
Okay. Thank you. Under discussion, Councilor Jordan.
Yeah, great. First of all, I just want to thank Kathy for doing this examination. This is exactly what I was talking about, which is taking a look at these rules, that there actually are rules. What I was concerned about is the fact that if you look about it, and it turned out and worked out, and I'm really happy that we can use the 3,000 and there's no issue, it's perfect. But if you really read the opinion and the work that you did, Kathy, it does appear that unless you met all these criteria, it would not have been allowed, right? That under a general rule, the painting unless it was meeting something to do either major restoration or, in this case, it was preserving the historic color, that the DOR and these other agencies have actually ruled on this to say that as a general rule, just because you have peeling paint on a historic building does not in and of itself allow you to just use CPA funding. And that was kind of that's kind of my point in all of this exercise, that now that we're using CPA and we're building this and we're maturing, that I just want us to just take a step back and make sure we're following the rules. And I really appreciate your thoughtful approach to this to help us so that, nobody ever can question that we use something inappropriately and that we're doing things the right way. And now we're building, sort of a little book that talks about, what does it mean, all of these different rules, and we really understand what we're doing, and we just take it as an educational moment for the CPA committee and for all of us generally. And I'm thrilled that we can use the $3,000 for this, but if we couldn't, we would have found some other source for the money. But I'm glad it all worked out, and I do want to thank you for the very thoughtful approach you did to the opinion. This is exactly what I was hoping that you would do, and you certainly did not fail to come through with a very thoughtful approach to it. And so thank you. I'm happy to support the $3,000 for the CPA funding to do this.
Any further councilor
Council.
comments?
Yeah, just briefly, thank you, Attorney Deegan. It's important that we get the message to people that we're doing things the right way here, and I'm glad that we got the opinion and that it is allowed to use this funding, and that we could get this painting work started and get it accomplished soon. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any councilor Bartley?
Yeah, just through the chair to the department head. Would you just tell me about the foundation for a minute? What's the name of our foundation, and where are we in terms of fundraising? And then just going beyond this, how soon, is there any time you anticipate Wisteria Hearst will be self-supporting?
Well, the museum is a department within the city, so I don't know what you mean by self-sustaining. The Wisteria Foundation is an organization that does fundraising and volunteer work to help supplement the budget. This project they contributed $75,000 to. So, yeah, I'm kind of confused by that question.
Well, let me unconfuse you. So, just the foundation. What's the name of it first?
The Wisteria Hearst Foundation.
All right, and is it a 501c3?
Correct.
Okay, and what's the balance in any kind of foundation budget? Is that subject to public inspection?
Correct. And you can actually reach out to anyone on the board. Our current treasurer is Tim DeShays. He'd be more than happy to share any financial information with you. And Coco Givner, who is a council member, she is also the mayoral appointee on our board, and she can also give you updates as well.
And what's the balance of do you have any idea what the balance of the foundation budget is?
Not currently off the top of my head, no.
Okay, is that a communication that you can have Tim send to Mr. Our administrative assistant for our next city council meeting? Which would, well, actually, that might be a little tight because it'd be due tomorrow, wouldn't it? Because of the Monday holiday. We have one meeting in March. It's March 7th. Is that enough time for us to get a communication from Tim DeShays to explain to us a little bit about the foundation and what the balance is currently?
I can reach out and ask.
Can't do much better than that, I don't think. Hopefully that's a quick answer. And then in terms of self-sustaining, Wisteria Hearst is a city department. We agree, but it's also in a unique situation. So it's when it has ability to raise funds on its own, whereas not too many other departments in the city can do that. Take private funds from the public and do that. So that's that's why I asked the question. I'm hopeful that at some point we'll hear a lot more about the foundation. I can ask some more intelligent questions based upon that review. Thank you.
Any further discussion?
No, I make a motion that the 3,000 be approved, Mr. Chairman.
I'll second that.
Wanted to, just a note, and Councilor Bart, a little bit on top of what Councilor Bartley said, is Wisteria Hearst, from the Skinner family descendants, is actually, deeded the property to the city with very specific uses. The city cannot sell Wisteria Hearst, and if we stop using it for the purposes that it was accepted, it actually returns to the estate of the Skinner family itself. And the foundation, which was formerly known as the Friends of Wisteria Hearst, have always done those fundraising and activities like the Wisteria Hearst Garden thing, all the stuff that, I think we appreciate, and not just the museum itself, but good points, and hopefully we'll get some more information about it, but.
Yeah, just in response to that, Mr. Chair, I agree with you on that, but I don't know, I was not aware of the foundation's $75,000 commitment to this project prior to. Now, that may be just me, but it's important that the public is at least aware that the foundation exists and that kind of financial commitment is put towards this. So that's what I want to say. Thank you.
On the motion to adopt, roll call, because Councilor Paulo is on Zoom. Councilor Tallman,
Yes.
Councilor Jordan,
Yes.
Councilor Paulo,
Yes.
Councilor McGivern, yes. It passes 4-0. Item 1A is actually just information received, and we can just say received, I guess.
1A received.
Motion made second. Item 1A is received, and just attach it to the order itself. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. That was incidental. If I could ask, because Megan Sealer is here, the next item was going to begin two items that would, I didn't realize it, but Attorney Dupree is with us this evening. Russell, if you could just hang on for 1 minute. We got one more for Megan, which is actually two more, but it's one that we can do, and if there's any questions for the Wisteria Hearst part of items 3 and 4, which is the Veterans Grant, Heritage Grant.
Motion to take items number 3 and 4 off the table for discussion.
Motion made and taken, items 3 and 4 off the table for discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. This will explain itself in a second, but item 3 is a Veterans Benefits Direct, from Veterans Benefits Direct, $3,000 to the Veterans Heritage Grant of $3,000. And item 4 is under Mass General Laws, Chapter 44, 53A, the City Council hereby accepts the provisions of the State Historical Records Advisory Board, known as the SHRAB Fiscal 23 Veterans Heritage Grant. It's a $26,238 grant, a 50% match, $13,238 in cash, and $3,000 in kind. Cash and in kind together. We'll get an explanation of that in 1 minute, and we're just allowing the department and the city to accept this and then set up the necessary funds and appropriate accounting of all the receipts. So under discussion, I'm sorry, Jesus from Veterans Affairs is with us, and Megan Sealer is with us because there's a joint project here with Wisteria Hearst. Jesus, would you like to walk us through the grant and the transfer?
Sure. Good evening, councilors, and thank you for letting me meet with you guys tonight. I really want to take a moment and just thank Megan and her team for the work that they've been doing in the last couple of years with grants. They've really turned around what we've been doing at the War Memorial, and really they should be just showered with accolades. They're the ones that are doing the hard work, writing the grants and getting us, this money that we can now use in our building. Last year we did a grant where we were able to put uniforms on display and veterans were able to tell their stories. Along with that, we're also able to hang up the flags in the flag room and get a case and some mannequins to display the uniforms. Moving forward, we're looking to do a grant. Well, we just they've applied for and got actually approved the SHRAB grant for $13,000, and that's so we can get some kiosks in the building that would help visitors navigate the displays. The total of the project is about $26,000. Somewhere in the vicinity of about about $9,000 to $10,000 in volunteer hours, $3,000 in cash that we're trying to transfer over to the grant account from Veteran Services to pay for graphic artist designs and posters and things like that. And then the SHRAB grant would cover the purchasing of the kiosks, the training on the kiosks, paying for students to get some literature translated into Spanish, software installation, and so on.
And Jesus, the $3,000 coming from your veterans benefits direct, you've identified this as a surplus. You won't be needing additional monies for that line item for the rest of the fiscal year, correct?
That's correct. And our current projection shows us having a surplus by the end of the year, even after transferring these funds out.
Okay. And any reasons for the surplus? I know you had some banner years with veterans that were applying for what is theirs, to apply for. But is it just a high estimate, or did something change?
No, I'll tell you that we've sort of set the stage in the state for hiring a national service officer, doing VA claims in office, tracking those things, and then adding income from the VA into our veterans, cash flow, which then sort of makes them, I'm going to say ineligible in most cases, but it increases their accountable income as far as Chapter 115 is concerned. So the amount that's needed from our municipality is reduced.
Any discussion?
No, just thank you to all involved for doing this great work to make these improvements and to continue to go after these grants and to continue to showcase our military history, which is a proud and great one in this city. So really greatly appreciate everything you're all doing collectively to work together for these joint efforts. It's really appreciated. Thank you all.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
I make a motion that they both be approved. Items
second
3
that.
and 4.
Yeah, just,
Counselor Bartley.
just on number 4, Mr. Chair, because I see there's a 50% match, 3,000 of cash and kind, so that leaves another 10,000 change. Have we identified a funding source for
Yes.
that?
Yes,
That's in kind.
yes, sorry.
Am I not saying it?
I could answer that.
Yeah.
Jesus, can you answer that?
Sure. The project breakdown is we have one line where it's 10 hours of volunteer work at $30 an hour for 10 weeks. There's another, which is $3,000. There's another one for 10 hours of work from another volunteer for 12 weeks at $30 an hour, and that's $3,600. And about another 10 hours from another volunteer for about 10 weeks for about another $3,600 or so, $3,000. And that'll close that gap.
Appreciate it, and thank Counselor Bartley for the question, because it's in the wording of the grant, but it reads kind of funny. But it's the in-kind service that makes up the difference with the 3,000.
Good enough, thank you.
And I probably could have read it better, but I'll take the blame on that one. Any further discussion? Megan, are you all set? Thank you for sticking around.
Thank you.
Thank you, Megan.
On the motion to adopt, roll call. Counselor Tomlin?
Yes.
Counselor Jordan?
Yes.
Counselor Powell?
Yes.
Counselor McGivern, yes. Passes 4-0 on the grant, and we did say take them up together, so 4-0 on the transfer. All right, if we can go back to 2 and take up the 2 contracts out of order, but we'll take them up separately.
Motion to take 2 off the table.
Second.
And a second to take 2 off the table. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Item 2 has been referred to us from the Law Department and the Mayor. It's an agreement between the City of Holyoke and NAGE R1-180, otherwise known as the Clerical Union. Under discussion, we have with us, representing the Law Department, Attorney Dupre. And is there someone here representing the union?
I believe Angel Alvarez was going to be here, but I don't see him here today.
Well, why don't we walk through the contract itself, Attorney Dupre, and we'll see if we need any questions from the union. I had some
Okay.
contact, not from Angel, but from other members, and I know sounds like they're pretty much in favor of it.
Okay, good. So I can walk you through it quickly. Most of the provisions actually deal with the police clerks. So what happened in regard to 1, 2, 3, and 4, the police clerks, the city and the union agree that they would work a 4 and 2 schedule because they're in the police department. So it saves us on overtime, and it also allows them some changes to their benefits. So it kind of worked for both parties, and it aligned with how the chief of police really wanted to set up his staff in the department. We are in discussions with the union again now for the next contract. And I think we might be making some further changes for the police dispatchers, but for now, we basically, all the language you see here is trying to align them with what's called Unit 3 in your agreement, which are the 4 and 2 employees. If you look at number 5, we have a 3-year duration for this contract. We landed at a 2% in the first year, 3% in the second year, and a 2% in the third year. And that's really essentially in line with area settlements. So Agawam, we were at the same basic amounts. I think my understanding is a number of the other cities around you are also at about 7% over 3 years total. And then the last thing I'll note on the wages is we agreed to reopen the agreement for the second year of the contract. And basically what we're doing there, with all your groups, we've been looking at kind of the marketplace competitiveness. And with some of the positions in this group, it's felt that we are, some of them are competitive, some of them, are maybe even a little bit more than average. But there's a number of positions in your group, in this particular group, that the parties feel, I think both sides feel, that some changes should be made. And so we're looking at that to determine, based on the marketplace, what do we need to change? It's not all of the positions, but there are some. And so we've started to have a conversation with NAGE about that. And the last item is incorporating some changes that were already made in MOAs back in June of 2022. And so that's really just updating the contract to reflect those MOAs regarding the pay rates for those couple of positions.
Thank you. Thank
That's
you, Attorney
really all we
Dupre.
have from NAGE.
Nope, thank you. And we have our auditor, Tanya Dorjek, is with us this evening, who has handed us the necessary identification of where these monies are coming from for fiscal year 2023 to
Where's that in our packet?
it's
I didn't get it.
I didn't get that. All I have is an item 2, which is the contract. Did you get that, Peter?
No, I didn't get that one either.
it just this was our auditors with us. So why don't we ask Tanya to come up and just walk us through this? But it's the monies for the increase are in the budget that we passed for the fiscal year, and then Tanya, could you walk us over identify the amount this year and then the amounts for year 2024 and year 2025?
So, year number 1, we actually budgeted in the mayor's first supplemental budget, and the additional cost to the NAGE contract will be $45,804. Year 2 at 3% will be an additional $84,875, and year 3, 2025, is the fiscal year at 2% will be $68,666.
And can you tell us the amount of employees you budgeted for? How many clerical positions?
That's a tricky question, a lot. I want to say there's about 45 positions, at least in that union. And they're all spread across the whole city, like it's police dispatchers, it's administrative assistants in all the different offices, it's accountants, it's your local building inspectors, it's your sanitation workers. So there's a bunch of different departments involved in this union.
Okay, I thank you. Questions and answers. Questions for answers. Councilor Jordan.
Yes. Tanya, as you say, the monies, these are compounded, correct? So the year one total impact is of a 2% increase retro back is 40. So the total cost for this year is 45,804 if we approve it, or is that just in addition to the amount?
That's in addition. The total cost for the Nage Union in 2023 with this addition will be $2,336,025.
Over what is it? What's the prior expense so I can understand the delta?
I will do the math for you quick if you like. I just did the additions.
Sure.
$2,292.21.
I'm sorry?
$2,290,221. I can also send you the worksheet that I work with that has all the positions, and you can see their individual wages if you'd like that.
Yeah, see, one of the things that I wanted to mention at this meeting, because I think it's just as good as any, is I think it would be really helpful for us to have a financial analysis of any of these contracts. It shows, one, I think it's important for us to be transparent about what the actual cost of what we're actually voting on, and the council understands what's being asked of us. And then I also would like the law department to provide us a red line of the contract so that we can see the actual things change from what was the former language to what is the new language. And so that would be, if Russell is overseeing these things, then I would ask that request of him.
Yeah, that's already been done, so.
We received a
Lisa-
red line?
Yep, there's a red lined, tracked contract, so I could have Lisa, Kathy, could you have Lisa send that along? Great.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I can.
Okay, so it was done, but just not given to the city council.
Yeah, I always do a tracked contract for all of the contracts. I'm not sure, I send it out to the team I'm working with. I don't know what the practice is as far as getting it to the council or not. But certainly if the finance committee and the council wants it on each occasion, there always is a tracked contract. So that's something we could automatically give you going forward.
Yes, please. I would request that, because in order for us to, and obviously we would want it in advance of the meeting so that we have an opportunity to read what the former language is and what the new language is, so we can do our due diligence, because we're supposed to, at the end of the day, on behalf of the citizens, validate and approve what work you're doing here.
Yep.
Okay, so let's come back to 2%. What, I guess the math here doesn't make sense to me. 45,804, how could that be for the whole of fiscal year 23? If that's 2%, how could 3% be 84,875? Shouldn't it be like, if you were 1% more, shouldn't that number be, is it really going to be double? No, that would be, I'm just doing the division. If a 3% increase equals 85,000, how could a 2% increase only be 45,000?
Well, I have to say that they're paid hourly, so you do it hourly. Some are part-time, some are full-time. Sometimes they have MOAs that increase the cost by $10,000 a position. Sometimes it's $6,000 a position. Some people are at step 1, 2, 3, 4. They have a half a year at 1, a half a year at 2. So there's a lot of different variables there. Plus it depends, is there positions being added? So like it does vary. The 2% is based on, the 2% for year 1, 2023 was based on the current people. But when I do the 3%, I also look at what people are doing in the interim, and I add like spots on if I need to. So really, it's just an estimate. I could definitely send you my breakdown, and you can take a look at it if you like, and you can see the different levels, the different steps, who's what. Some of them changed grades. I know that Russell works with the solicitor's office, just trying to get a marketable wage so we can bring people in, and we did that in 2023. So you will see a little bit of a higher increase.
Right, because in year 3, you articulate that the 2% would be valued at $68,000. So that just led me to believe that a year 1 2% increase would probably somewhere in the vicinity of the low 60,000 range, if not around approximately 60,000.
Somebody that started at step 1 in year 1 could ultimately be up at step 5 in year 2, depending on when they actually began their job.
So you did some projections then in that regard.
Yeah, because they're going to get the raise anyway. So like they get a raise in July, they get a raise in January, and then any other benefits that were added. We're going to have a retro in there too. So.
Okay. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, 15,000, but these are compounded upon each other though, correct? So for example,
No. They're additional costs per year. They're not compounded. So it's going to be an additional $45,000 in year 1. If you add the two together, it'll be an extra, $140,000 in year 2. It's not. I just did it straight from one to the other.
the difference, the added on.
Yes.
So that's what I guess, let me rephrase my question because I think you're agreeing with me then, is that if we make an increase in year 1 of $45,000, then the actual true cost more from the baseline is $45,804 plus $84,875.
Yes. That's correct.
Okay. So therefore, we're going to pay an extra approximately $130,000 more than what we're paying today.
In year 2.
Yes.
Yes.
And if we were to add the additional $68,000 in year 3, which begins, let me see the dates, July 1st, 2024. Well, that's only a year from now, right?
Right.
So that we'll be paying an extra $200,000 a year for these employees if we approve this. By July 1st, 2024.
In 3 years, yes.
Year and a half.
On July 1st, 2024. Okay. So the point that I want to make is, again, these are huge increases. And no doubt people deserve these increases. But all I'm pointing out is this is why financially it's going to be very hard for us to continue to sustain these type of
Yes,
growth of our government. Okay, we do not have. Think about how much money we bring in the tax levy. If the tax levy is increasing by $1 million a year, right here by the next year, just this one unit of 45 employees is going to be meaning we're going to spend for this same category of individuals $200,000 more a year within the next year. See, this is my point, is this is what's going on. And I'm going to vote for this because these employees deserve a cost of living adjustment. Of course, the only thing I have questions about that causes me to not know how I'll vote yet. But on the issue of the raises, I support 2%, 3% annual adjustments because you need these in the midst of inflation. We have to still understand the rest of the moving parts of this contract. But that part of it, 2 and 3% raises, I support. And I see why we embrace that for employees. They deserve to have cost of living adjustments. But the point I'm trying to make is this community, with all of these increases, we don't have enough revenue coming in to continue to support these type of increases. I mean, you add up all of these raises that we give out just to operate the government. There's no one on the side that's saying, how much more money do you have coming in to hand out an extra $200,000 a year? There's no scoreboard, is my point. And I think what we need to start adding to these conversations, if we're going to do this the right way, is how much money do we have available in a given year to give out, and what do we think is our revenue projection, and then say so much for police and so much for fire and so much for this and so much for that and so much for the clerical union, those conversations, there's no benchmark for these numbers, right? What are you comparing it to? That's like saying, for example, it's going to cost you an extra, $200 a month to pay your utility bill, but you only know next year you're going to get a $100 increase in your pay. Okay, if utilities go up $200 and you have no idea what someone's income is going up, no problem. It could be good, it could be bad, we don't know. But if you don't know what you're benchmarking it to, you're actually falling backwards. And what I'm suggesting to the committee is, we have no idea what the revenue is coming in. It doesn't seem to be growing at these type of paces. And, this is why this stuff is really starting to add up. And when you consider the retirement growth of $375,000 per year and all the other things that are going up, where are we getting this money from? Who? Show me the revenue stream that pays for all this. That's my concern overall. It's nothing to do with these individuals. They deserve, this is not outlandish by any means, a 2 and 3% cost of living adjustment. No problem. So let's look at some of the other provisions here. It says that there's a change of hours of work to go to 4 days on and 2 days off. What do they have now, Russell?
They're 5 and 2. They
Five.
were 5 and
5 and 2. So is that a financial impact of going from 4 and 2 to 5 and 2?
Yeah, so it is, but in a positive direction for the city. So what, in discussions with the chief, what it should do is reduce overtime. So what was happening, so basically we were having to call in people to cover, which was causing overtime. So now they're essential employees. So when City Hall closes, we don't have to send them home because they're essential. So that was, I think, one of the main drivers of the chief. I don't want to speak for him because he's not here, but I know that was one of the things we talked about in negotiations.
Can we get a financial analysis? See, this is the thing. I guess I'm trying to raise our game here a little bit, and I don't want to come across as too, being a pain here too much, but this is my job. Is you're making a change. First of all, if any citizen of Holyoke, including Councilor Jordan, read this document, until I asked you that question, how on earth would I know we were going from 5 and 2 to 4 and 2? Doesn't say that on the piece of paper. So there is no what we're going to this. So then the question is, if there is a positive benefit, I need the chief or whoever to outline to us that is a positive benefit to us and explain in writing that says, we had this is what we spent per year on the 5 and 2 system, but if we go to 4 and 2, it'll be this. And this is helpful to the police department. We'll save $10,000 a year on overtime, blah, blah, blah. Like, you guys need to give that kind of backup to the city council, okay? You can't, and I get where we're going, and it's not your fault per se, because you're fairly new. But what I'm saying, going forward, we need to step up our game on all this financial stuff. We need to have more meat on the bone when it comes to proposals that are coming in that actually say you're making all these changes. What are the pros and cons and the financial impact of these things? Okay, for example, holiday bonus. City agrees that police clerks on a regular schedule duty the following holiday shall be entitled to an additional compensation of $100 per day on a holiday. Do they get that today?
I don't believe so because they're on a 5 and 2.
Okay, so what is that? So what is that? So what does that cost? It's 5 days a year on times how many people?
I I don't know how many police clerks there are. I think it's a handful. So maybe 2 or 3, but I'm not positive.
Okay. If you could let us know. Now, Tanya, when you do your financial analysis, when you say it costs $45,804, do you factor in 5 and 2 going to 4 and 2? Do you factor in $100 holiday bonuses? Is that all baked in the cake of your numbers? Or are you looking at strictly the salary adjustments?
So even if they switch their schedule, they're still working 40 hours a week. So it doesn't matter if they're 4 and 2 or 5 and 2 or 4 and 3, that just equals out to the same amount of hours. So that doesn't adjust the salary. But what I do not know is who and how many people are working on holidays. I only see that they work 40 hours a week. I see if they get a holiday bonus in their payroll, but I don't get their timesheet. So like I can't, they didn't get it last year, so I have nothing to compare it to. Or I would be able to take a look at what they did last year, like I do with their other benefits, and I would calculate that as well.
Okay, let's think about that for a minute. So if you work a 4 and 2 schedule, explain to me how you're working 40 hours a week.
I actually did it on the calendar, I'm not gonna lie, but you have to go like each week. If you do 4 days on, 3 days off, it equals out to the same amount of days worked a week. I question the same thing myself.
Yeah, so
It ends up that they're working 5 days.
okay.
4 and 3.
So some weeks you might work more, but other weeks you work less.
No, I feel like it's still 40 hours a week. I'll have to look at it again, but that's one thing that I did look at. And they used to, what I have to say about that change, just to be transparent, is that these individuals went from working 35 hours a week to 40 hours a week. So that was an increase in itself, because each of the police clerks that were working 7-hour days, now they're working 8-hour days. They were working 35 hours a week, now they're working 40 hours a week. So that does increase it, even though the amount of days isn't changed, the hours themselves have changed.
Okay. And is that factored into the 45,000?
Yes.
Okay. Because we're paying for this staff to be an extra 5 hours a week then on average.
Correct.
Okay. Interesting. I'd like to see that laid out in some sort of math. Yeah, that would be helpful.
Yeah, I'm
I'd like
sorry.
to
I
understand.
usually, they just ask for the total, so that's what
I
I was
understand.
prepared with, but I do have that
I appreciate it.
information for you.
Yeah. So it seems like it's the police clerks that have the most, because this is a union of, Russell, do you know how many people are in the union, this group that we're voting on?
We just looked at that the other day. It's roughly 60.
60 people. And you don't know how many clerks there are, because it sounds like maybe that's a small section of this.
I don't. It is not a lot. Not many of them are police clerks, but I'm not sure exactly. It's somewhere around 3, I believe. But
3, okay. So
and
maybe
they don't all work those 5 holidays. It's only if you're working one of those holidays you get. So it's when in discussions with the chief. So we did look at the financials, and actually the mayor is very good about looking at projected budget amounts to see if we can cover some of these contracts or not. So he's very hands-on, which is a good thing, because
Right.
it gives us all more confidence that we actually can afford the contracts.
right.
But the Chief Pratt, when we were going through this, based on the overtime savings, he felt that more than, covered the occasional holiday bonus.
Well, maybe I'll suggest to my other colleagues on the finance committee, in and of itself, and again, I don't want to hold up for 57 employees, they're 232, over what this numbers is for the other 3. So maybe we could adopt this, send it up to the council, but between now and Tuesday, could you get us this supplemental information about all these moving parts of the stuff about the police clerks that were requested here, such as how the 5 and 2 works. Like, what is the cost of the 35 to 40 hours? How does that add up? And like, how does it save money on overtime? If you could kind of like flesh all that out and, what you're projecting for the holidays. Cause I'm assuming there's clerks working on these holidays, I'm assuming, right?
Sometimes, yes.
Not always.
Okay. All right. And I see the
It
police
would be
chief.
rotating,
uh,
so some, it would depend, but some of the days, yes.
The
Oh, it
chair
looks
rec-
like Chief is here, actually.
Okay.
Chair will recognize Chief Pratt.
I could probably help you out a little bit with that 4 and 2 and 5 and 2. You're talking about covering 7 days with 5. 4 and 2 is only 6 days, so the next 4 and 2 starts the 7th day. So it's the same, basically the same amount per pay period. They're still working the 80 hours in the pay period. This whole part about essential workers. So in years past, we had clerks, and then we had part-time clerks. And when the mayor, say there was a snowstorm and the mayor sent all the city hall workers home, all our clerks got to go home as well. And we had to call in backup part-time clerks to fill those spots. It's not efficient for the police department to operate that way. These people, are the people that work in records and help us through snowstorms and everything else. So it was always very cumbersome to make that happen. This was an agreement to get them on as essential workers, similar to the dispatchers that I believe are in the same union, and get them working for us in that manner. So that's how that all came to be. So not only was there a savings, and I know that these numbers went over back in the early stages of the negotiations of the savings, not only in the overtime, but also we cut part-time employees out and made more full-time positions of the same job. So basically the cost savings was there. I don't recall at this time, it was quite a while ago, I don't remember exactly what those numbers were, but there were numbers that showed the effectiveness of this and the efficiency to run the department properly and not have all my clerks going home when the mayor decides to close City Hall at noon on a snowy day. So that's why we went in that direction, if that helps.
You gotta watch out for those mayors.
Yes. But if you could put your thoughts together on that, Chief, I would be happy to advance this forward. And if you could give us some of this supplemental information relative to the clerks between now and Tuesday, so we have the information to present
All right,
when we vote on it.
I'll try. I know that the budget from the past year cut positions from that part-time clerk's line item, and there was a significant reduction there. I'd have to go back a couple budgets to see what it was to what it is. But I know that was part of the cost savings, as well as the clerks before were all basically on a 5 and 2, and we were filling overtime spots on the weekend, and the part-time clerks filled in some of that, but some of it was covered as well. With overtime, we had the overtime reduction. Basically, essentially what we have now is we have 9 main clerks that work in the Records Bureau, 3 on each shift, and 1 in each group. So there's 2 of them in every day. Even with one of them taking the day off, there's still someone there to cover, and it's more of a reduction in having to fill everything with overtime.
Chief, is this 3 people we're talking about, or how many people?
Well, there's 3 people, but they're on each shift, so there's really 9, and then there's a couple more that are on that are in that same group, but that they're not on in the Records Bureau. I'm just talking specifically about the Records Bureau personnel.
So how many people are actually affected by these rules? Is it 10 people, 12 people?
I believe it's 11.
Okay, well,
I can
11's a
double
lot.
check that number, but I believe it's 11.
All right, well, 11's a lot bigger than 3. So we've already gone from, in the last couple of minutes, from it affects 3 people to it affects 11 people. So this is my point, okay? We need to, the council needs to do its job. And that's my bailiwick, that we need to know what we're actually voting on. So if you could please provide us the details for Tuesday as to the whole piece, because that's kind of the big moving part in this contract. It seems like the rest of it is all pretty straightforward relative to everybody else. If you could just tell us what's going on with these 11 people and break it all down, why we should vote for this, why this is good for your department, it adds flexibility, you're saving money, whatever. If you could write a one-pager up that makes the pitch to us, we would appreciate it. At least I would appreciate it.
Any further discussion? Anyone here from the union? To represent the union? Okay.
So
Chair, will entertain a motion?
I'll make a motion to be approved, Mr. Chairman, but, hopefully we'll get the supplemental for Tuesday.
I'll second that.
Motion made second. Motion made second and third that we approve the contract, recognizing that the money to pay for the contract is already in the budget that we approved. On that motion, roll call, Counselor Tomlin,
Yes.
Counselor Jordan.
Yes.
Counselor Pello,
Yes.
Counselor McGivern, yes. Okay, so that will go to the full city council, and we'll ask our administrative assistant to follow up on some of the questions and the answers that we're looking for. The chair would ask, because Attorney Dupre is here and has another commitment, that we take up 18 and 19 together real quick.
So moved.
Second.
Motion to take off the table, items 18 and 19 as a package. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. 19 is an MOA, a statement of agreement between the City of Holyoke and the International Brotherhood of Police Officers, known as Local 409. Item 19 is a transfer, which I believe supports the MOA, of a request from sick buyback, $51,952. The Local 409 Supervisors MOA to the Local 409 Supervisors. I'm sorry, Tanya, I'm reading this wrong, I think. That's $51,952 from sick buyback, Local 409 HPD Supervisors MOA to captains, lieutenants, and sergeants. The figures for captains, $9,409, lieutenants, $16,218, sergeants, $26,235. Attorney Dupre, could you walk us through the MOA?
Yes. So, number one, the hours and overtime change, that's just a typo in the contract. It should have said officer instead of said offer. So we changed it to employee because that's actually the term that's used most often in this contract. Number two, we added Juneteenth, which was added to all the contracts. Previously, there is a provision for a one-time bonus payment for Juneteenth for 6/20/22. All the other unions received that day, but the police supervisors did not.
Can I ask a question on that, Mr. Chairman?
Quick question from Councilor Jordan.
On Section 2, Russell, legally, how can you go back to a prior fiscal year when the Mass state law says you're not allowed to go and make a payment retro to a prior fiscal year, which would be 7/1 of 2022?
Yeah, so with collective bargaining, and I had this happen in Pittsfield years ago, the DOR was, they had a finance advisory board, so the DOR was overseeing them, and they did allow us to go back to the prior fiscal year through a settlement and collective bargaining agreement. So that's actually, it happens very frequently actually with collective bargaining because many contracts are not settled in time. So they have a retroactive component to it that goes back to a prior fiscal year.
Can you get me a legal
So it is-
opinion that says you can do that? And I don't know if it has to
What
be
was that?
signed off by the DOR, but I think the council is going to need a legal opinion. I was under the impression that Chapter 44 precluded that. So I'd like to see something that says you can make retro back to a prior fiscal year.
Okay. we can give you something on that.
I'd appreciate it, just for our own housekeeping. Because that
Make a
issue
note.
comes up, and that was always my understanding of the rule.
Yeah, it is technically the rule, but it's never, it's not, it's very frequently the case that contracts, and probably many of yours over the years, actually some of the ones that I know the last round, I think were late too. They're just not settled in time. So there's very frequently a retroactive piece to a prior fiscal year. And the states allowed it because generally, I mean, it would create extreme labor unrest not to allow it. But it does technically say in the law, you're not generally supposed to do that. But what happens is cities and towns hold over the money for the prior year, and then you pay it once it's settled. But we can provide you an opinion on it.
Thank you.
So let me just make a note of that. Okay. All right, so to go on, the next item, 3A, and by the way, this contract, we were in mediation for a while. We negotiated for quite a long time. We were in mediation for quite a long time. And so this was one of the hangups, is we were trying to start to reduce the payouts that were occurring upon retirement. So the sick leave buyback for certain groups in the city can be, it's been quite large over the years, quite expensive. So this provision for newer employees, new employees, we would limit that payout to essentially 120 days max. So the intent of the city is to try and over time reduce that liability that the city has upon retirement. And that, if we can successfully do that over time, obviously it allows for more flexibility as far as wages, because I have a lot of clients where they put money into things like this over the years. And what it did, and they mainly did it in lean years where they didn't have enough to give an increase that was, maybe competitive with the area. Unfortunately, that comes back to bite you later, because then you have these massive payouts to people that are leaving employment, and you don't have enough money left to, pay what you would like to pay to the employees that are still working for you. So in a number of contracts where we've been trying to consistently reduce that liability. So this is one way to do that. Under 3B, the patrol agreement last round made this change in regards to the sick incentive or sick bonus. So instead of 3 periods throughout the year, there would be 4 different periods in the year where you could get this bonus. That was provided to the patrol union at the time, but for whatever reason, it didn't go in the police supervisor's contract. So the police supervisors requested and insisted on this change to make it the same as patrol. Under number 4A and B, 4A deals with a provision that basically requires the parties to talk about or try to come up with a mutually acceptable arbitrator, or if we have an arbitration. I propose to delete that because in my entire career, I've never seen a time where the union and the city or employer agreed to the same arbitrator. So it's just a waste of time to try to do that. It makes more sense to just send out a request for an arbitrator. They give us a list, we pick independently, and then if there's a match selected, that's who the arbitrator would be. So it's just a more efficient process, which is why I proposed it. 4B is just a typo in the contract that we're fixing. 5 is the same thing. 6, we're looking for a 3-year contract. With this contract, we agreed to 2% each year, all 3 years. And then on the last day of the contract, and this is really partially in exchange for the reducing the sick leave buyback provision, we agreed to a new second step and a new third step, which would be 1.5% greater than the prior step. The new second step would be a 3-year, and the third step would be a 5-year step in grade. And what occurred in mediation, when we get into mediation, you look at area contracts, and the main reason for those steps, besides the fact that we were trading it for something else, was that your pay for this group is fairly competitive, in my opinion, until you get to the top of the scale. And so the top of the scale, because other contracts have steps and yours doesn't, it created a situation where you weren't really as competitive at the top. So the compromise through the variety of mediators we have in this case was to add these 2 steps in the last day of the contract. And then the last item is the educational incentive. And you may or may not remember this, but the patrol union, the last contract, it was negotiated to change the educational incentive to allow a percentage so that it's tied to their regular salary schedule on a percentage basis. So every time your salary schedule goes up, the percentage, the amount of educational incentive also goes up. So we did not agree to do that with this group. However, and there is a history behind this, basically, there's claims about whether or not this was essentially, I guess I won't get into that, but there was something promised to the patrol, and it didn't end up in the police supervisor's contract. It was before your current negotiators were in place, or solicitors. But it was just a back and forth back then that we weren't involved in, but it did create a difficult situation in negotiations this time. So we were adamant we didn't want to do the percentages, but we did increase the amounts to the amounts you see here. So prior, the associate's degree was 2,200, that goes to 4,000. Bachelor's went from 4,400 to 7,000, and master's went from 6,000 to 9,000. Those numbers are still, if you look in the area, and this is really what used to be called the Quinn Bill. So if you look in the area, many cities are changing their Quinn Bill benefit. So it went away for a while, except for the city's share. But many places have started to increase the benefit, really, because a number of other cities did. So it's basically everybody's trying to keep up with each other. But this particular change is not percentage-based, which in my opinion is better. If you just do flat dollar amounts and try to stay within the realm of what other cities are doing, that seems to be a better approach than locking it into your salary. And that is the entire agreement.
Attorney Dupre, on the education incentive you just described, I fully remember the patrol officers and spoke against it adamantly, but it's the opposite of what we negotiated when the Quinn Bill was grandfathered and the state reneged on their portion of the Quinn Bill. And we recognized that in the beginning of the Quinn Bill, which was a long time ago, I believe it even predated my time, believe it or not, that percentage is wrong. It just doesn't make sense. So I thank you for explaining that. These increases, is this one time for the duration of this 3-year contract?
Yes.
Okay. And I appreciate you being very thorough. I think without having to repeat everything, if we can get that red line contract copy of what was done with this union too, it would be helpful to members of the council. Is there anyone?
Do that. It's ready.
Thank you. Is there anyone here to represent the union? Jeff, anybody online representing the union?
It was my understanding that Lieutenant DiNapoli was going to join. Sergeant Hart emailed me that earlier, but I don't see him.
Okay. I know they've been invited. I know as they were invited on the previous one, Angel was supposed to be with us. A couple other members are aware of it, but I just wanted to recognize them first if they so chose to speak or give any additional information. With our job.
Mr. Chair.
Yes?
There is Jim Bartolome in the attendees who keeps raising his hand. I don't know if he's a part of this. Does anybody recognize that name?
Yes, I do. Yeah, Jim's on the police department. Yep.
Okay, I will promote him to panelist.
Jim, welcome.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now, Jim. Welcome.
Okay.
Can
Thank you
just,
very much, gentlemen.
Can you just, for the record, introduce yourself and what position you would be representing in terms of the contract before us?
My name is Jim Bartolome. I'm a sergeant with the Hoyoke Police Department, and I was part of the executive team that negotiated the contract with the city.
Okay, thank you. And Jim, not just out of courtesy, but we always try to hear from everybody before we get into the money part of this. Is there anything you'd like to add to what Attorney Dupre described for this body?
No, I think he did a very good job. It was a long deliberation for us to get to where we got to, but we believe that it's a fair deal for both the city and for us. So if there were any questions that you had of me about any of the items, please fire away. Otherwise, I think Attorney Dupre did a great job.
Okay. Thank you, Sergeant. And if you can hold on, there may be some questions.
Okay.
Seeing none at the immediate moment, we'd recognize our auditor to put some dollar figures. Well, the transfer first. But we have a transfer in front of us. And Tanya, does this transfer cover the increases in the contract, or are there additional monies in the budget that cover it?
So this is just for the salaries, the transfer, and the rest of it they do have in their budget.
Okay, so when we do a transfer like this, it's for the current fiscal year, retroactive to July 1, and this represents the 2% increase for fiscal
2023.
2023. And the fiscal 2022, the money's for that?
What fiscal year 2022?
It's in the MOA, which I just noticed for the first time.
I didn't see a fiscal year
You mean
2022.
fiscal 23, starting July 1, 22. That's
Yeah.
actually fiscal 23.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Effective July for us.
Okay, got
I
it.
was like, I don't know.
Never mind, that's the chair. Okay, thank you. And the other increases, can you walk us through in the budget where they are and how the mayor's gonna pay for this?
So in fiscal year 2023,
Yes, the
the
current.
other additional costs would be their holiday pay, their court, and their overtime, but those are all variable rates that they can cover within their own budget. I based my estimates off of fiscal year 2022 hours worked by these particular positions. And it's about 8,900 in overtime, holiday is 1,900, and court was about $347, so it wasn't significant.
Okay. And I appreciate having the variable numbers in front of us, especially overtime, because it certainly, in our larger departments, that's an impact when MOAs are passed. But at the same time, overtime is not guaranteed. And at some point, if the revenue stream, as Councilor Jordan likes to point out, runs out, the revenue for overtime will be the first that runs out. So when we negotiate contracts, I think everybody keeps that in mind to try to keep us above water as we go forward. Thank you. And Chief Pratt, on the transfer or on anything else, did you want to add anything?
Did you want me to go over basically, I just transferred from the sick buyback into those three line items to make up the amount needed for the fiscal.
Understood. The transfer from sick leave buyback is a surplus. You won't need a transfer in later in the year unless something unforeseen happens?
No, I'll be good.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions, any comments?
I have some questions.
Councilor Jordan.
Thank you. So I know we're talking about 27 people, if my math is still correct, of the number, because it's 4 captains, 8 lieutenants, I believe 15 sergeants have come to mind. So assuming most of these folks have degrees, right? If you have a master's degree, if we approve this, you're going to get a check for $3,000. And these other ones, bachelor's degree, $2,600 and such.
Actually, not everyone will get that. That's only for the members that aren't under the old Quinn bill, and I believe we only have 2 or 3.
Yeah, I can speak to that, Chief, if you don't mind. We have 3 members, Kevin, that currently are under the educational incentive. We have 2 that have master's degrees, so they're going to go from the I think it's 6,000 to 9,000.
Yep.
And we have one I believe that has a associate's, so he'll be going from the 2,200 to the 4,000.
Okay. And then everybody else is still under the old system.
The majority of the rest of the supervisors are under the old system. There are a couple that don't have education at all.
I see. Okay.
Right, that was my point. That not
All right.
all 27 members are going to receive that.
Okay. You might have heard that we have some financial difficulties. I could be just the boy who cries wolf over here. We'll see in about 6 or 7 years how this movie ends. Maybe I'm totally out in left field, but I'm watching the math and it just doesn't add up to me. Meanwhile, we do need to be giving people cost of living adjustments. So anything above and beyond that, I do appreciate the union agreeing to do something with the sick leave caps. What is the current rule on the amount of sick leave that can be bought back at retirement? Is there no cap whatsoever, and this is the first time we're putting a cap?
It's 250 days.
250. And now that'll be lowered to 200. And is there a...
60%. So it'll be 120.
Okay. So...
Buyback.
Okay, so Chief, under the current rule, it's 250. Is it 60% or 100%?
That's the max. It's 100%, 250 days. That's the current agreement. This agreement will make that maximum 120.
So that is that is a huge difference, obviously, right? That's 100.
Yes.
So you're going from 250 to 120. So that's 130 days less. Because I'm assuming we keep an accrual to know what the value of that is. I don't know if the auditors examined that yet, or has somebody done an analysis to know what the value is to the city of reducing for this class of 27 people, 130 days of sick leave buyback is? That's got to be a pretty substantial number, I would think.
Not all of them have sick leave.
Yeah, futuristically it will be. But it wouldn't happen until you have people retire, way much down the road. But that's the way contracts work. I mean, unfortunately, it's going to be an incremental change. But yes, futuristically, it's going to be a very good thing for the city.
Oh, absolutely. I guess I'm just trying to understand is, if you took the average salary per day and multiplied it by 130 days by 27 people, that's a pretty significant sum of money. Now, I'd like to know what that's worth, because then that at least is counterbalanced against these other adjustments. Because, I guess I have to say it because I have to say it. Now, I'm a big fan of the Hoyoke Police Department, as the vast majority of citizens in this community are. But I will say I do get pushback. I would be tone deaf if I didn't say, when they publish the salaries of the superior officers, you've got umpteen number of people well in excess of $200,000 a year. I don't know what the average salary is for the class of individuals that we're talking about here, but these are heavy, heavy salaries. There's a lot of money to be made here. Now, of course, a lot of that is overtime, and that's maybe not necessary. And I try to explain that to people, that that's not necessarily all paid by the city. That's road jobs, that's different things that come from other sources besides out of the taxpayer's pocket. But, some people might say, gee whiz, despite all of our financial difficulties, why are we giving a group of highly compensated people even more money? Maybe the chief, Jim, you're both very articulate. Why is us approving this as stewards and people who represent a poor community with tight finances, why take a few minutes to explain why we should vote for this and this is in the best interest? I just pointed out, maybe you say, and why do you feel this is a balanced and fair contract and that one I should vote for? When, we look at, it looks like you gave a big give up with the sick leave, which is something that was important to the city. The 2% wage increase, you don't really have to sell me on that because I think you're entitled to that. I think every worker deserves a cost of living adjustment. But tell me about the step increases, the added educational, counterbalanced against the sick leave. I just feel like citizens have a right to know why this is a fair contract. Can you make the case to me, please?
I think I can, and I'll certainly let Jim speak as well if he wants to speak on behalf of the union, why they think it's a fair contract. I think that through negotiations, there were some salary comparisons done, and I know what you're saying about the salaries, and I understand that, but you did hit on the point that a lot of that salary is overtime and road jobs and extra work. But the base salary of our supervisors, believe it or not, to our comparative cities was the lowest of the 5 comparative cities. And most of that we, through negotiation that we saw was based on the fact that a lot of these other cities have step raises built in to their, and we never have at the supervisory rank. And we feel that that's important for many reasons, to incentivize people to stay and work towards those steps. But that's what brought us back in a line, and I think that Russell could also speak to that more in the negotiations, and Jim can, that was a big part of it, that initially when we sat down, both sides got comparative numbers, and that brought us, why we feel it's a fair contract is it brings us in line with our surrounding communities with what they're paying their police supervisors. So I think that we are right on board with everyone else, and quite frankly, I think that that's definitely fair for the supervisors union.
Okay.
Kev, if I could just explain a little bit about topping off what the chief said. Thank you, Chief. When we went into negotiations, one of the things that was being broadcasted by the city was they wanted to look at people's wages to make sure that everybody was being paid fairly and equally to the people around them, so that we could keep good employees in the city, which we all know we've lost employees due to pay scales. And I understand that our city isn't like all the others, but we used West Springfield, Chicopee, and Westfield, the other 4 big cities in the area, when we did our comparisons. And we were the lowest paid, base pay-wise, out of those 5 cities. And once again, I know it's not apples to apples, but those are the other big cities in our area. If we just did a quick comparison, I can tell you that, a sergeant in West Springfield makes $7,000 more a year base pay than a sergeant in Hoyoke. A lieutenant in West Springfield makes $11,000 more a year base pay than a lieutenant in Holyoke. And these are the numbers that we brought to the table when we were explaining to the city. Now we did, those 2 steps at the end that we put in, like the chief said, to give us a little bit more pay, like the cities around us. We knew as we went through the negotiation that, we were willing to put them at the end of the contract. We weren't saying we want them right away, we need them right now. We look at the contract as a whole and what it's going to give us at the end of the contract. Like, we will have accumulated this much at the end of the contract. And we thought that was pretty important. As far as the education goes, one of the reasons that we fought so hard to get percentages like the patrolman, but we didn't quite get there, was if you have a patrolman with a master's degree currently getting a percentage for their educational incentive, when they become a sergeant, if we had stayed at the old number, they would have actually lost money in that promotion. They made more money getting a percentage as a patrolman than they would have at the fixed number that the supervisors used to get before we made this increase. So most of what we negotiated here was just kind of fair. And I understand people look at the amount of money we make and, you know, like you said and the chief said, you know, they have to understand that we work a lot of hours. We don't make that money on a 40-hour-a-week salary. You know, most of the policemen and the supervisors at the Hoyoke Police Department are working 60 to 80 hours a week in order to make that much money. And you know, some of us would like to be home and like not to be there. And under the current, how do I say this? Currently in policing, you know, we don't have enough policemen, and we don't have policemen who want to work all these hours. So people are being held against, you know, against their will. They're not with their families. They're not home. They're not where they want to be, but they're filling in and doing the hours that are necessary to keep the people of the city safe. So when I look at this agreement, I look at it in those kind of two things. It brings us a little bit closer to everybody else. Even with this contract, we're still fourth in line out of those 5 cities. Springfield's still above us, West Springfield's still above us, and Westfield is still above us. But it keeps us kind of in a pace with them. So I would say I believe it's a fair deal, and you know that those are the reasons why.
Okay.
Attorney Dupre, if I can just jump in
Sure.
there, I appreciate that, and I think that's what the city has been trying to do, is to be fair to all of our employees and try to be, by analyzing, looking across the board. But when it comes to this particular contract, you just mentioned base pay. What about the benefits within the superior officer's contract? Are they similar across the board in all these communities?
I would say they're similar except for the sick leave buyback. Sick leave buyback is pretty generous in Holyoke.
Okay.
I would say that's the big difference between some of the other ones. But other than that, I think most of the other benefits are very similar.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry.
Joe, if I can, one of the big benefits that we don't have that 3 of the other 5 have is the insurance split. Us and Chicopee are at a 50-50 split, and Springfield's at a 75-25, and West Springfield and Westfield are at an 80-20.
Thank you, Sergeant.
Could either Jim or the chief or Russ, could you guys again reduce some of these comparables to the council and submit that to us before Tuesday, so we have this information and show what the financial impact is? We did have some analysis here, but if you're going to have comparisons to other communities or different, please give us these documents, because one, we need that to make intelligent decisions here. And then number 2 is these go into the minutes, and people, if citizens can see, okay, well, this is why the council voted to give them this increase, because they're $7,000 less than Chicopee or whatever the case may be. But, Russ, I would ask that everybody look at the same numbers and show what the value of all these things are, and the city should give its perspective. We're really counting, Russ, on the city to provide the council with what we view as the cost of the overall impact. And if you could also quantify the reduction in those 130 days, that seems to me to be very valuable to the city. That, just thinking, well, if people are making, probably a few hundred, probably what, $500, $600, $700 a day for a salary, perhaps. If you times that by 130 days at retirement, say $500 a day, that's a pretty significant sum of money. Okay, what would that be? $65,000 at retirement. that we are not going to have that type of exposure across 27 people, that's a real big benefit to the city. That should be monetized and put on a piece of paper for us, because I think that's a big, if I were the city, that's a big win for obviously from your side of the table.
Yeah, I think, so I can get you the opinion on the retro issue. I think Chief Pratt, you could probably get the information on the difference in sick leave buyback between the current system and what it would be if somebody retired into the new one. And Jim, I know you had the comparison that we reviewed and compared. Would you mind presenting that as well?
Yeah, not a problem at all. I can produce that information.
Okay. And I would say, to me, I know Jim and I probably aren't totally on the same page on this point, but I think the data, the way I would look at it is that, and the reason we put the steps in is I think the data shows, in my opinion, that at the top end of our scale is where we become less competitive. The bottom end, I would say there's differences, but to me, like a 3-5% difference, or sometimes even a little more than that, it's worth noting, but it's not necessarily something where I would say as a negotiator, okay, I need to upgrade this salary schedule. The top end is where we really, I think both sides agreed that there needed to be something done on the top end of the schedule. So that was my analysis of it. I think Jim did a good job of presenting to it, but we differed a little bit on the lower end.
I would say, Russell, thank you. I agree with you. Gentlemen, when we did our analysis and put our numbers together, we used everybody's top step. The problem with our top step is it's our first step. We only had one step. So when we came into the picture, when you're looking at everybody's salaries, these other salaries got to top step quickly, 2, 3, 5 years, they were at their top step and we were still bottom step. So when I just gave you those numbers saying that everybody makes more money than we do, that's everybody's top step. It's Holyoke's top step, Springfield's top step, so what Russell's saying is true. It was the top end that we were lacking in, but it's because we didn't have the steps to get us there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So this now creates a 2 or 3 step system in 2025? A 3-step. Okay.
Yeah. First year, 3 years, 5 years.
Okay. Thank you.
Any further discussion?
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman, that we approve this and we'll await the additional information before Tuesday so we have that before we vote.
Motion made and seconded that we approve the contract and the transfer that goes with the contract, and that we would anticipate the additional information before our full city council vote, which we will be recommending out this evening. There's no further discussion. Roll call vote, Councilor Tallman?
Yes.
Councilor Jordan?
Yes.
Councilor Powell?
Yes.
Councilor McGivern, yes. Passes 4-0. We'll go to the city council next week. Thank you, Attorney Dupre. I think that's it for you.
Yes, I believe so.
Okay, appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
All right.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Take care, Jim.
Item number 5.
I'll make a motion to take it off the table.
Motion made second to take item 5 off the table. All those in favor? Any opposed? Introduced by myself for the mayor. A transfer of $26,000 from the Capital Stabilization Fund into equipment repair and maintenance recreation. Same amount to $26,000. Off the table for discussion, we have with us Tom Reynolds from the Parks Department. Tom, welcome. And we appreciate you being here. Would you like to walk us through this?
Sure can. I'll try to, I know you guys still got more after me, so I'll try to keep this kind of brief and to the point and we can go. So currently at our skating path here at Community Field, in order to have that, because it's an ammonia-based refrigeration system, I guess you could say, like other rinks and other food manufacturing processing plants with ammonia-based, of these ammonia-based systems, we need to be in in with the EPA, in compliance with EPA. And then to do so, they come in and they check and make sure that all the nuts and bearings and seals and all that stuff works. They do a mechanical inspection and they give us the green light that we're in compliance. It's usually a 5-year plan with the company that goes through the EPA for being certified or in compliance. So when I started in June, the idea was trying to get this back up and running for this future winter, as it's been off for a few lines. I think COVID kind of wrecked it, along with everything else. So I kind of had our ARC, American Refrigeration Company Mechanical, come out and do, and they're the company that's been doing the routine, the opening and the closing, the routine maintenance since I believe 2016, maybe 2015, going by the log books that they come and sign and stuff like that. So with this, we also had the company, the gentleman from Robillard Company, which deals with the EPA and the compliance side. He came through as well as the ARC group, and kind of came through and went through stuff that was probably out of compliance at that time. Not sure how or what time frame it did scoot out of compliance. This was just, I think, put together in 2012, community field to redo. So the skating pad was new, I believe, at that time. So here we are. We have a few things that are either A, out of date, B, malfunctioning, or C, all the above. And we need to kind of get these back in and work on to get back to that compliance route. What we have here for this 26,000 is the ammonia detection system replacement. The current detection system is kind of malfunctioning. It's reading ammonia readings that's not there because we've had the contractors come out and test. They light up sulfur sticks and they walk around the unit and see if there's any reaction to the ammonia. There's been none of that. All the seals are closed. We've had the upkeep maintenance performed for this year. Going back, we've had the oil change in the system. So the detection system here is out of compliance. It's old. It's a very older computer system, and just like our normal computer system, you know, when you start getting to that 5, 6, 7 year time frame on a computer or software, hardware, you know, things start kind of going sideways a little bit. So an update of the system, the gentleman said they don't even make this brand of system of what we currently have there. So this quote proposal here from ARC is replacing that unit, the ammonia detection system, the electrical work, getting it all taken care of, and putting it together that way. The thing with this detection system is what we found out over the past couple weeks is when it kicks on, if it picks up a reading or misfires and it's reading that there's ammonia in that garage where the system is housed, it will pick up a percentage and will rate it on a number scale. I'm not sure exactly what that is, but it will read that it's picking up ammonia in the system, and it'll kick on a fan to a certain percentage to mitigate that whatever that number value is. And it kicks on the open vents to the side, so then it starts moving the air outside through that building, so it's not contained and it's not hazardous to anyone that's there. What's happening with a little bit of colder weather very little cold that we've been having, unfortunately, the system is firing, saying that there's ammonia in the garage with the unit being housed, and it's opening the vents, it's kicking on the fan, and then ultimately what's happening is the thermostat for the heat in that building where our workers are kicks on, and then we just had to replace our propane storage because we burnt through it all because that system kept firing on and going forward. You know, with this, there's another unit piece that will need to be fixed and replaced, but it's not as dire need as this. My biggest concern is if, you know, with the system that we have, we're like, you know, saying, you know, it may be reading that there's an ammonia leak in there. We know that there's not, but for me to feel better about it, I don't want to play that game where we're like, well, it could be leaking, but we think it's not, and we don't want to kind of run that route anyway. So, in a nutshell, that's the ammonia detection system. Again, that's what we need to see replaced to go and have it. And the detection system, whether the unit is being fired on or is it closed, as it has been for many years, it's still going to be firing and working to make sure that there's no leaks through the system of any valves, any seals that may be leaking and go. So ventilation system is another thing down the road, but that is really only contingent on the machine operating. This is going to be stagnant both on and off because it's kind of that safety kind of parameter that we're trying to follow here.
Tom, I know you said it at the beginning. This is where is this building located?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It's the community field skating path up at Holyoke Community Field.
And
I'm sorry.
What are the activities in the building when you got workers there? What's the purpose of the building?
That's where we have our time clock is there. All our tools, our storage, our chemicals, our cleaning supplies, our golf cart that's in there that they drive around and do the rounds of the park. So they're in and out of that garage. It is separate from the warming room, I guess we would use for the skating path that they kind of use as their office and headquarters type deal. But they're in and out of that garage quite often through the day.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
Make a motion to be approved.
I'm second.
Motion made and second that we approve the transfer. Seeing no further discussion on the roll call, Counselor Tallman?
Yes.
Counselor Jordan?
Yes.
Counselor Powell?
Yes.
Counselor McGivern, yes. Passes. Tommy, we'll send this recommendation to the full city council next Tuesday. I'm not sure if that was brevity, but it certainly was very well described, and we appreciate your, I believe, inaugural run at the Finance Committee.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Councilors, very much. It was indeed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
Thanks, Tom.
I appreciate you guys. Have a wonderful evening.
You too. Motion to take item number 6 off the table for discussion.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to take 6 off the table. All those in favor? Any
Aye.
opposed? Request of a transfer of $7,000 from auto motor equipment repairman into overtime. Off the table for discussion. All those in favor? Any opposed? So moved. We have with us another inaugural run. The chair and committee would like to welcome our new superintendent of the Board of Public Works, Mr. Carl Rossi. Carl, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, and welcome. And we appreciate you being here with this evening. We spent a lot of time on contracts, which I'm sure you have in your tenure, but we appreciate to hear from you on a few items this evening. Could you walk us through this transfer?
Yeah, this is transfer for overtime for one of our police mechanics, and this is projected hopefully for the rest of the year. Obviously, we have no control over this overtime, but this is what we expect for the rest of the fiscal year.
And the reason for a surplus and the line item it's coming from, the automotive equipment repairman.
Yeah, because I believe that's an open position that we haven't filled.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Rossi? Councilor Jordan.
Yeah, Carl, why do we have overtime being used? Is it because this is an unfilled position? Well, why the overtime, please?
We have no control over the overtime over the police and fire mechanics. So whatever work they have at those in those departments that need to be done need to be taken care of right away.
Okay, so who does have control over it? The police chief?
I believe so. The police chief and the fire chief.
Oh, okay. Is Chief Pratt still here? Or?
Chief Pratt?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm confused by that. I didn't think I had any control over the DPW.
Well, he's saying he doesn't have control over the mechanic for overtime, and he says it's your area that you have control over it. So why are we over by $7,000 on overtime?
I don't have any control over his budget for his mechanic. I don't know. I know it's our mechanic, but it's not in my budget. I'm confused.
The money comes out of our budget, but we don't control the work that's done on the police vehicles.
Okay.
So why can't we do the work within the 40 hours or whatever number of hours this person's, why do we need overtime?
To be honest with you, I don't know. I don't have the answers tonight. I'd have to look into it, but I'm
Okay.
sure there's reasons why the mechanic stayed or worked overtime. I thought most of his overtime came from, like, when he's called in on, for DPW stuff, but I don't know. I'll double check though, and I'll get back to you.
All right, make a motion to be tabled till the next meeting.
Second.
Motion made and second that we'll table this line item and take it up at a future finance committee meeting when we get some answers. I think the question, or not to rephrase the question, it's quite obvious, is who does control? We set up, or we allowed under Mayor Sullivan, I believe, to set up the a multi-purpose garage mechanics within the DPW. Where prior to that, every department seemed to have their own mechanics and worked in different areas in the city. Obviously, some of the work is specific to police, specific to fire, specific to DPW vehicles, but at the same time, there are cost savings for supplies and some overall operation costs themselves by doing it together. But someone's got to be in control, I think, is the question we have, and we just like to hear from the parties to be as to who's in control and who's watching the hen house, so to speak. I'm sure it's legit, but we need to hear the answers. On the motion to table, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. I'm pretty sure our first motion covers that. There's no roll call.
Yes, sir. Take 7 off the table if we're ready, or unless we have
Want
something.
to do a bunch together or no? One at a time?
Yeah, and Aaron Vegas here, I know he's been patient, but we have a number of requests from the Cannabis Stabilization Fund itself, going into, most of it's DPW right now. But it's up to the committee. We can kind of get a general discussion on cannabis and then go through them. All right, so the next two items are cannabis.
Motion to take item number 7 and 8 off the table for discussion.
Motion made second to take 7 and 8 off the table for discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Item 7, the request is for $399,000 from cannabis into DPW Race Street improvement. And number 8 is $202,000 from cannabis stabilization into DPW Main Street Safety Project. Off the table, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Aaron, I know you're here for a number of items, and we thank you. This is cannabis, which you've been before us in the past. And I'm sorry, Carl, are you still with us?
Actually, good evening.
Chris is with us.
Yeah, I can speak if,
Okay.
I don't know if Aaron wants to do an introduction, but I'm happy to answer questions or give an overview of the projects, whatever.
Okay, Chris, we're going to look for that in 1 minute. I think perhaps we should do just real quick, the cannabis, does the money qualify, all that stuff that Aaron is so adept at doing, and I appreciate that. And then I know one of these projects was before us in the past, so I think we've got some of the details, but then we'll just go to you for the status of these projects and how this all fits in together.
So good evening, councilors and members of the committee and everyone else online. So we have 5 applications in front of you tonight. We continue to navigate the ever-changing world of cannabis and impact fees. These fees are obviously ones that have been collected since the first companies opened up until 2001, because the 2002 impact fees will be coming into the city by the end of March. They have 90 days after the calendar year. So these projects are ones that we've been discussing with obviously Chris Baker and his team over at the DPW. 3 of the 5, I think, are for the DPW, and we have discussed these with the mayor and we have discussed these with our Citizens Cannabis Review Committee as well. I want to thank my staff, particularly Marie Brazo, who has been trying to professionalize that group and has created a worksheet for the members, and so we can track the accountability. Obviously, we have the applications that have all the reasons why we are trying to justify the use of these impact fees. And of course, these are also proposals that have been discussed with the current companies that are open and paying these impact fees. So these are proposals that are both focus on public safety, one of the built environment, and then one talking about the master plan, which I'm not sure which number that is. But I think the two you've taken up are both DPW. I think one of them, the Main Street one, I believe, has come from orders from the City Council to discuss public safety concerns around Main Street. And then, of course, the Ray Street one continues to look at how we build upon the federal and state money that came to do the first phase of the canal walk. And then, of course, the second phase is going to connect to the Willimantic Bridge. So we're trying to fill in some of that work there. But overall, again, I think that these are looking at ways to improve the area that benefits the community, that, of course, benefits all retail, benefits all people that work in the city and come to the city, public safety, infrastructure, and, of course, making Holyoke a continued attraction to draw in more businesses, draw in more people, and build upon the infrastructure we have around tourism thus far. But I think the two you've taken up so far, I believe, are entry 1850, which you mentioned was the $202,000. That is the Main Street proposal. And the other one I think you took up was entry 1848, which is $390,000 for the Ray Street, connecting the canal walk with the Center City plan. These of us, obviously, as you know, we've been talking to the law department. We've also been talking with our outside counsel that we have with us through KP Law. We just had a meeting today with them, and I know that our attorney, Lisa Ball, is meeting with them again this week, not only to address the impact fee, but all the ever-changing laws, rules, and regulations around community agreements and everything else cannabis. So these are the ones that are before you thus far tonight.
Aaron, on the cannabis part, you mentioned the advisory committee.
The citizens.
Okay, can you just tell us who put that together and how it works quickly, if you could?
We put a call out. It was suggested by the city council to have this, and so working with a couple city councilors made some suggestions of people. We reached out to them. I think one or two of those people came to fruition. We put out a general press release, and I think we have 6 people on that committee right now. It's just an advisory committee. We've empowered them to ask questions, learn about the law, and anything that they don't deem really significant or have real issues with, we're not putting forward. So these are ones that they've all vetted, looked at, and it's sort of, again, just an advisory committee, so they've not been sworn in, they've not been appointed. That was sort of the discussion between, I think, some councilors and the mayor, and so we took that on. I will say, the last thing I'll say is you will get a proposal, hopefully, next month, pertaining to, I believe, 2 orders that the city council has put forward. So recognizing that the Citizens Review Committee doesn't have much power, but to understand this and advise us a little bit, we are going to put a request in for funds to be used for substance abuse prevention. I believe Councilor Jordan was one of the orders, and I think there was one before. It might have been Councilor Jose Maldonado, I'm not sure, but there's 2 orders that deal with that. So our thought was to request funds to be used for substance abuse prevention, put together a roundtable with the providers in the area, your CHDs, your service nets, Gandaras, etc., work with the advisory committee, craft an RFP, go out to have providers and answer the RFP, and actually have the review committee be a little bit more active in reviewing those. So giving them a little bit more meat, a little bit more vested interest in spending some of these funds.
And I appreciate that, because I think the message from the city council, some members more strong than others, was to do something similar to a block grant process, something not quite as similar, but something the CPA process does too, by bringing in voices in the community to bounce things off of, and it's very important.
And we're still open to bringing more people onto that group as well.
Okay, And then the legal questions, I can see the advancement in terms of what this cannabis impact money can be used for, and of course, then the actual projects, then we work with the departments, and I appreciate that. If you can hold on for a minute, we'll do these two, and I think the other three go to your office, so we can do those maybe real quick. Chris?
Yep.
Thank you, and we appreciate you being here. We're a little bit familiar with both of these projects, but can you give us the details and update, and we'll have some questions in a minute for everybody.
Absolutely, sure. So, I mean, I'll take up the Ray Street project first. So, as you probably know, the third phase of Canal Walk, which is now being called City Center project, is going down Ray Street and then down Cabot Street to the Willimantic Bridge. We would like to continue the look and feel of this project down Ray Street from Cabot to Sargent. So it's 2 blocks. And we'll basically, I mean, the pavement condition is quite poor in that area. And so we'd basically be repaving, doing new sidewalks. And we envisioned having angled parking there, because right now it's not necessarily marked where the parking is. So just generally kind of getting that up to, a sense of revitalizing the area down there and connecting it to the Canal Walk project. And this application, actually, we originally asked for $524,000, and at this time they didn't want to include the decorative fence is quite expensive, so that was taken out of it. So that's where you get the $399.
And those fences were the ones that were going to be on the canal itself?
So, yep, that's right on the canal side, and it was essentially that black aluminum fencing that's being used in all of those projects. So we do think that we'd like to include that at a later time. So it's something that can be done, after the fact.
Okay, I think that's important too, because I think that's part of the. I see some good use of the phase, especially phase 1 of the canal walk, and the fences that are up, and the crossover over the canal is incredible. And the second project, Chris?
So the second project is raised crosswalks on Main Street. So one of them will be a mid-block crosswalk between Cabot and Spring Street. The second one would be at Spring Street. And then the third is at Hamilton. I know Hamilton came up in a previous council order as a dangerous intersection. So, and all of these are uncontrolled intersections, and we chose them on Main Street because it is an area where a lot of the cannabis facilities are currently. So this money will, raised crosswalks do end up being relatively expensive just due to the drainage issues that it causes. So we have to install new catch basins, connect into the drainage. And so, yeah, this will include all the pavement markings on the raised crosswalk, signage, and granite curbing that's necessary.
And raised sidewalks are a little bit different than speed humps. I think they're in height and elevation.
Yep. So the raised crosswalks, they're 3 inches high. Some of the newer ones are by Dean Tech. So yeah, they are a traffic calming measure, but what it really does is it gets the pedestrians that are crossing up higher, so they're more visible to motorists. And it does, the vehicles can't, get to high speeds in between them. So that's why we've usually space them between 200 and 500 feet apart, so that the vehicles can't, get up to a high rate of speed in between them. So they usually, you do them in pairs or triplets like we're proposing.
I'm a big fan of what raised sidewalks have to offer in certain locations, and certainly by Dean, and it seems like these proposals come along with the Main Street corridor issues we've been having with everything from traffic speed to nighttime racing and so forth. You might want to get the ruler out though on one of those Dean raised sidewalks, because I think it's a little bit more than that 3 inches. Any questions? Councilor Jordan.
Just a quick question about, I like these in terms of the raised sidewalks on Main Street to help with the speeding issue and just as a traffic calming measure. I will say, though, just make sure we have our ducks in a row with all the proper signage and all of that, because it wasn't a raised sidewalk, but I don't know, somebody came up with the idea 10 years or 15 years ago, it was something like this, to put an octagon over on Dwight Street, and some guy came by with a motorcycle, and he's no longer with us, I understand. And I believe a lawsuit ensued following that. So I just want to make sure, and it came down to the big question about what was reasonable for the amount of traffic on the street, because this is a high traffic street, obviously. And, just make sure we have all our ducks in a row and there's proper signage, because that's going to be a big difference. For those that follow the speed limit, no problem. But for those that don't, it's going to be a new day down on Main Street. So hopefully, everybody's on the same page and we do some good notice at like Main and Cabot and some of these other areas that, we got new measures here. Please take note of all of that. But do appreciate the effort. I'm sure it'll be appreciated by the neighbors throughout that area. But yes, I did have one actual question for Aaron. What's the pot of gold at this point in the Cannabis Stabilization Fund? It was like 3 million something at one point, wasn't it?
Well, 3.2 still.
3.2, okay. And if we added up everything tonight, I think it's around $900,000. So, okay. Now, I really like your approach about what you're doing with. So basically, let me see if I have this right. You get the mayor on board, obviously, right? So Josh is on board. Then you have the review committee. Obviously, this is something you and your office is on board as the lead people. And then I like this other thing about, you mentioned you lay these things out for the people that are paying the impact fee, right? Like, and they were on board with these different ones that are coming forward. You get their input, because I mean, if anybody's going to complain that we're not using the money in the right way, it's the people that we're paying for, right? So I think that's super smart on your part to get them to get their buy-in, to say, hey, look, this is where the money's going. You're funding this. It's tangible. You can see it. We're not adding salaries or something with it. It's immediately impacting. And you've been getting a buy-in, a decent response from them to say, yeah, this makes sense, or
yeah, decent buy-in. I mean, no one likes paying extra money off their
course.
Office, so yeah. But I also think that there's, I think that I would say in general, the grow facilities are definitely more focused on the public safety stuff. They have a number of employees coming through Main Street, North Canal Street, all these different areas coming from all over. 500 people about working in the industry now in downtown. So those public safety issues are a concern to them. They don't want anyone getting hurt, and they don't want anyone hurting, any of their employees hurting somebody.
Right.
The dispensaries, I would say, are much more in favor of as you know, we approved the marketing funds for a marketing director or firm to be contracted with us. They want to see more people here.
Right.
Just like any of our restaurants, our retail.
Absolutely.
They want to see more people here, whether it's coming to see the public art, whether it's coming to see the festivals. They just want more people here.
It makes all the sense in the world, yeah.
When you look at some of the numbers, we can see the 2 retail shops that are closer to Heritage State Park, where Petronalis Festival happened, and other festivals. You can see those numbers a little bit different than the ones down on Sargent and other areas. So you can see that when people are coming to town, we can look at those data and see an impact in the retail. And again, that goes for restaurants and other things as well.
One last question. How much, we know about the property tax impact. We obviously know about this impact fee money that we've collected. How much do we collect a year on the sales tax? Isn't there a 3% tax?
On the excise. Yeah,
on the excise, thank you.
Yep.
Do you know approximately how much we collect on that a year? Just ballpark?
I would just say not off the top of my head. Maybe Tanya's looking it up, but I would say that again on the cannabis page, on the economic development page, we have that financial narrative, which lists what we got last year. And next month's core cannabis group meeting, which is all the department heads that come together, that's the discussions to put together the financial narrative for 2022. So we list in that report, and again, I'll resend the link. I think Jeffrey has it, but we put the excise tax in there. That obviously goes to the general fund, just like our room and board tax and all those other excise taxes. We also put in that first report. Probably won't see as much of that in this next year's report, but all the properties that had back taxes that they couldn't get an HCA. So we listed all those properties that paid back taxes to get the host community agreement.
Okay.
And then we list the impact fees as well.
Yeah, please send me that link.
Absolutely.
I'll check that out. Thank you.
It's fascinating, and I think long-term, the money coming from dispensaries is going to overshadow the impact money.
Definitely.
Because it'll be annual and not one time.
Exactly.
And with one of the other things, with the new law come into place, and once the CCC puts its regulations out, when we approve a social, I'm going to paraphrase this, but when we approve a social equity company, we will get an additional 1% excise fee from that company, from the state. So the state will actually take a reduction of what they're getting from those social equity candidates.
Oh, nice.
Companies.
Oh, that helps.
That's good.
That doesn't happen down the pike that often.
No, it doesn't.
When you were in tenure down in Boston, it was Councilor Tallman.
Yeah, I just want to state thank you for putting this together, and it's a great use of the stabilization money, the cannabis money, and seeing that the improvements in that area, especially for traffic and for the businesses that are down there, it's really a bonus, and really thank you for Chris too for getting that together and design so we can get started on that and the monies, because that's an area that they already did some work down there on Ray Street, and to improve that and eventually connect that to Cabot and going down to the Willimantic Bridge. I think that is really an important improvement to that area. Absolutely. Especially the raised sidewalks on Main Street. I think that's, and especially the areas that people are crossing. I know people, it's a very busy area down there by Racing Mart and down by the, Nueva, Hamilton Street, so having those raised crosswalks are important. We have some in the city that they do the job, especially up on not St. Jerome's, up on Franklin Street. Get those, and then down by Dean and
Westfield Road,
up by the
Road. Those work really.
Those are really good up by the park. It's excellent. So it's a bonus. So I'll make if there's no more questions, I'll make a motion to approve both transfers.
I'll second that.
Motion made second to adopt and recommend the approval of both transfers. Roll call, Councilor Tallman?
Yes.
Councilor Jordan?
Yes.
Councilor Powell?
Yes.
Councilor McGivern, yes. So that passes. We'll go to the full city council next Tuesday.
Hold on.
This portion of the meeting is DPW, cannabis, OPED. With DPW folks, please beg my forgiveness, but there's no easy way to put these agendas together.
Right.
We're just going to finish with cannabis real quick. There's 3 items.
Motion to take items number 13, 14, and 15 off the table.
Motion made second to take 13, 14, and 15 as a package. All those in favor? Any
Aye.
opposed? So moved. Each of these is from cannabis stabilization. 13 is for $150,000 into the OPED municipal support master plan.
Mm-hmm.
Item 14 is $100,000 into the OPED public art community benefit. And item 15 is from stabilization into the OPED, $70,000 into the OPED contracted legal services. Aaron, thank you. And thank you. I think we're updated on cannabis stabilization dollars and what's being done to work with these dollars before they're proposed. Can you tell us about each of these projects for your office?
Absolutely. So the first one I think you said was the master plan, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So as you know, our master plan for the city is upwards of 20 plus years old. And so we're looking to put together funds for a master plan. It is always eye-opening to me in this position how much things cost, raised crosswalks, etc. Plans cost a lot of money. Doing a comprehensive master plan for a city of this size will probably cost between $350,000 and $500,000 all told. We figured that given the new industry, given the impacts on infrastructure, water, electricity, the legalization of this new industry as well, and its impact on downtown, that a percentage of the cost of a master plan could be borne from the impact fees. We want to make sure that the future of our energy, the future of our water, and our public safety can support this industry like all industries. There will be an additional funds, I believe, coming from the mayor's ARPA funds to match that. And then, of course, we'll try to get grants to go forward and fill up any additional funds. If this was approved, we could then, of course, start the process, because I believe that the ARPA process will be allocating funds by the end of this fiscal year. So if this was allocated, we could at least start the RFP. We could start getting consultants in to see what that's going to even look like. But again, we feel that because this is a new industry and its impact on infrastructure, electricity, and water use, that this was a fair ask to be used for the master plan for the city.
I think it goes without saying, the master plan, the revisiting of the master plan has been put off because of the costs.
Yeah.
And I can't support this enough to say that our updating that master plan is so important, not just to OPED, but to the planning, your other component, the planning department, the mayor, the city council, and everybody who lives in this city to have a documented updated. I hope the process is similar to what our planning director of the time, Jack Hunter, did, and he brought a lot of it to the community with public hearings.
Absolutely.
And a lot of it back to the department heads, and does wonders, but it is, as you stated, outdated.
And I think that there'll be a big focus on municipal vulnerability as we look at these new master plans. That's been sort of the new topic that all master plans, comprehensive master plans that cities are looking at. So again, that really ties in when we talk about our reservoirs, our energy, our HG&E, all those good things. So
and that green label we don't always get that we already are.
Right.
And I'm not talking about St. Patrick's Day.
And this is obviously one of Mayor Garcia's key things is, we get what we plan for. So if we don't have a good master plan, to Councilor Jordan's earlier comments, we'll see how this stuff plays out in 6 years, right? So-
Right. Any questions on the master plan part?
Totally supportive. Just wondering, is this like we're going to get a sense of the mayor's flavor? I guess my question is, why not just bring this in when the ARPA money was going to come in? Or should we piecemeal it? Or is it we do this and then he's coming in with the ARPA and that usually comes here? And then, so we're thinking what the total cost is around $500,000?
350 to 500.
350 to 500.
Yeah.
Okay.
And again, we wanted to be very specific that we didn't feel comfortable paying for the entire master plan because, again, we're going to talk about the reservoirs, we're going to talk about up by the mall, we're going to talk about other areas of the city where there is no cannabis.
Right.
So we didn't feel that we should.
Makes sense.
Right.
Yeah,
these
that
funds
makes
will-
sense.
Right. So these funds will be directed towards, as in the big bucket of the cost, but we'll sort of parse out, when we talk about energy, we talk
Yeah.
about water, we talk about downtown.
Understood. I guess I was just trying to understand, as opposed to them coming in and say, here's the master plan, here's the whole package of money, approve 150 for this, 150 ARPA, and then who knows where the rest comes from. Okay. And the mayor is okay with us approving this and sort of this type of approach?
Yep.
All right.
I think we're familiar with the next two items, Aaron, but can you walk us through the both the public art community benefit monies?
So
and
this
the-
one again. So again, this one, is always, an interesting one because, obviously the cannabis industry did not impact the situation of much of our built environment. They came into this, and forgive me if I've used this metaphor already with you, but I often say if I had 5 hotels coming to downtown Holyoke, I'd have these same issues, right? The infrastructure issues, the public safety issues, and the built environment. To support all of our businesses in downtown and throughout the city, we need a welcoming community to come into. And that includes dealing with the blight, which we'll be talking about hopefully next month, but also having that public safety, but having those attractions that bring people in. So the first round of public art with the El Corazon project on Main Street has drawn a lot of attention, a lot of support from the businesses down there. And then, of course, the Beyond Walls project last year has garnered a lot of attention, a lot of support, and they're planning to come back this year. We're already here, this year. And again, when the murals were done, my office worked with a couple of the dispensary companies, and we created a bike path route to go, so we said, hey, go grab a Valley Bike Share, and here's the tour route. And we had all the information available on the Holyoke Explore Holyoke website, on the artists. We're actually talking about, hopefully this year, being able to incorporate information with your phone, so you can go up to the mural, boom, get the picture, right? Who did it? What's the name of it? What's the story of the art itself? And so again, these attractions that bring people in. Not to mention celebrating our 150th, having Beyond Walls back this year, we think would be a real benefit to what's going on with the return of the Petronalis Festival, the return of Celebrate Holyoke, all the good things happening on the 150th. And I can actually tell you that right now, one of the members of Beyond Walls is actually down in Puerto Rico, coincidentally, when a bunch of city people are down there as well, working with Puerto Rican artists to see about getting some of that. Obviously, would have a good connection to the community here. So we also believe that this would be, again, our built environment cleans up a lot of the city blocks. Even if you just look at what some of the property owners did along Main Street, some of those properties that were just, overrun with cars and bushes and overgrowth have been cleaned up to highlight and be able to have people still see the public art. So we see that ripple effect of doing that. We have building owners and property owners that are saying, okay, I'm going to take care of this a little bit better now. The city's invested in us, and it should have been happening sooner. Sometimes there's new property owners, but again, these investments in downtown are getting other people to come on board, and a lot of that also ties in with the work of the Flex Squad. So we believe that Beyond Walls has been a good partner with us, and we also believe that this would be a good use of impact fee funds, and we'd also believe, when we look at our community, that this is, especially with the 150th, that this is not a good time to be out raising funds from private industry. All right, we're going to have some big asks going to some of our partners, that you can think of when we talk about 150th celebration and sponsorship. So this was a way to sort of ease that ask, if you will, a little bit on our private industries.
There's some incredible murals within the city, and I think some of the more recent ones, if they come under this umbrella or not, are just impressive. To me, you take a right or left onto Spring Street off of Main Street, and first time I saw the moose, I slammed my brakes on because I said, whoa. Have you seen it?
I believe I have, yes.
Oh, and it is, I've never seen anything like that.
We've gotten
on the side of a building.
We've got a lot of positive impact from positive comments from businesses. I know Conklin Furniture, for instance, keeps calling us saying we want one. Sullivan Scrap says they want one. We're going to be talking to Ederon about the underpass on Appleton Street when you go under the bridge, and they took down that building. It's already been graffitied.
Yep.
So we know that if we put up public art, it doesn't get graffitied. So that could be a good location. Additionally, sometimes it's hard to think about and see these impacts, but on social media you see a lot of the impacts. But I would also say that one of the artists that did the mural over on Hampden Street, was nationally recognized, and in the portfolio book that was created, it's in German, so it doesn't really do us any good to read it. But the only picture, the only two-page photograph, does that make sense? Is that piece from Holyoke. So the book highlighting this artist, in the middle of the book is that piece highlighting the Holyoke. So it is having those impacts.
It's great to know, because I see that mural a number of times, but every Sunday on my way to St. Jerome's, which is my parish, my church, and that is a bright, no matter what kind of day it is, that mural brightens you up.
You can see
right
it from
away.
the park. It's attraction. Yep. And then, so I can talk about the other one. Then, so obviously, then the last one is support for outside counsel. So the law department has started the conversation with KP Law and the contract with KP Law. The law department was able to start it with their contracted services. Obviously, one thing to also mention with all of these. Like anything pulled out of stabilization, if it's not spent by the end of the fiscal year, it goes back in, unless it's encumbered. But something specifically like this, I don't know what it's going to cost us. We are talking with them right now. Again, I said the law department's covering the initial costs. We are looking at redrafting our renewal HCA. We have 10 companies whose HCAs expire this year. New regulations, new law, new HCA, lot to consider. We also have a few new companies coming, still looking at Holyoke, much slower than it has been before, but we need to have a new HCA that's in compliance with the new laws out there, even though the regulations are not yet put out by the CCC. Additionally, there's some other things that the mayor is working on looking at impact fees. So again, KP Law has been a great partner so far in this. Their lawyer, Nicole, that's her bailiwick, I guess, right, her wheelhouse. She's doing this sort of work for a number of communities, which is a benefit to us because a lot of this stuff will, I don't know if I want to go so far as to say boilerplate, but there's general language that needs to be in every HCA. So I don't foresee us having to use the whole 70,000, especially at this point since it's already February. But again, having those funds, because they've given us the municipal discount, which is great. So they only charge us $270 an hour.
Compared to what? It's what, 500, 400?
350, yeah. So, we get that municipal rate.
Aaron, as far as the billable hours and stuff and how that works, are you working with the city law department?
Oh, yes.
And overseeing and making sure that
100%. Both Mike Bissonette and Lisa Ball. In fact, again, there's a phone call, I believe, tomorrow or Friday with Lisa and KP Law. We sent Nicole. We're very efficient, right? Because we send her the email with the 5 topics we want to talk about, so we can hopefully get it done in that hour. So,
well, I was going to ask if Attorney Dupree was on the clock tonight with billable hours, but I was afraid to.
Yeah.
And knowing that on a serious note, and very serious, other communities have pending lawsuits centered around their use of cannabis impact monies themselves. So I think this is very important, and it sounds like KP Law is a good go-to firm.
Yep. A lot of municipalities used them in the very beginning to actually help them craft their HCA's. We did not at that point. I mean, I was not here, but it was crafted internally. But I even believe that they're involved. I think they're defending a few of the lawsuits out there as well. And they've been great. And they actually are pretty impressed with our process, as Councilor Jordan mentioned. Thought that our HCA was in good shape for the old laws. It was, again, very boilerplate. Other communities negotiate each HCA individually with companies, and it was just sort of the Wild West. And we tried to make it a little more standardized here.
Thank you. Discussion.
Couple questions.
Councilor Jordan.
First of all, obviously, I have no issue with the legal fee one. It makes all the sense in the world. You have to know what you're doing to do things the right way. So that makes all the sense in the world. And it's a direct impact cost, right?
Yep.
We have to make sure it's a cost that we wouldn't have but for these services that we're providing. Wanted to also say thank you about advancing the substance abuse prevention. I think that's really important, right?
You get that one next month.
Yeah, really, really appreciate you moving that forward. That's much appreciated. Wanted to talk to you for a moment just about the public art thing. Yep. Supportive, no doubt, and the work that's been done has been really, really nice. But what I have heard for feedback, and so I offer this is to people that have called me about it, is how was it decided that X artist was picked and that this, what is the screening process to determine what mural goes up and where? And what is the public dialogue around that? Some people, I don't know enough about some of these topics to have been offended, but some people did express concerns about the one over here on High Street to me, at High and Hamden to me. Whether they represent a lot of people or a small amount of people, I don't know. But whenever I have people say, gee, this is great and it's wonderful, and then I had other people say, apparently these were all Latinos that had expressed this to me and say, I object to certain portions of this mural and we're offended. My answer is, obviously, whenever you do public art is in the eye of the beholder. Some people will say this is good. Some people will say this is bad. So I try to take somewhat of an agnostic view, unless it's obviously distasteful. Okay. But that people had an opportunity to have dialogue and had discussion and that there was a process. And so my thing to those who had issues was, do they have a forum before? Otherwise, it just goes up and there's no, I don't recall ever a public dialogue that I'm aware of that went into before the Hamden Street mural went in, that showed this is what, we're thinking about doing, and citizens, we're thinking about putting this in this location. Let's have a public meeting. Do you feel this is good, bad? What's the community input? Talk to neighbors and things like this. So what I want to see going forward is that all citizens have a right to be heard and that we have a process on public art. I think, by the way, this topic came up before, and I could have sworn we had either put something in the ordinances, but Aaron, you might recall, we had a couple different spots in public parks where people put up different stanchions and different things, and people say, well, I don't like that. That's just an eyesore, right? I don't like that. And then this person looks at it and says, oh, that's the greatest thing since sliced bread. So my question is, if we're going to start really going out there and doing these type of things, I want to make sure citizens have advance notice, neighbors have notice, people who use the park, and that there's a real process and community dialogue around it. And talk to me about how do you envision that? Because I think you're sensitive to those points.
100%.
Yeah.
And I appreciate it. And so I can say this. I don't want to throw anybody under the bus. This is why we're taking this on. And so I'm actually meeting with Beyond Walls tomorrow at noon and going over the MOU. Instead of having a nonprofit, even though that nonprofit is still our strong partner, love them, this was a little bit too much for them to take on. And so that's why I think it's more important that the city be involved. And so in the MOU, I'm actually adding in more community engagement right from the beginning, and also more opportunity for the youth to be involved. So we've already been having that conversation. So you're exactly right. We want to have, and what's nice is we now have a vehicle with our partner at Nueva, with the El Corazon Advisory Group, to have that happen. I think that some of that may have happened at a smaller scale last year, but we weren't the lead. The city was not the lead. And so I think with us being the lead now, I think that we'll be able to sort of leverage that more. So again, I'm putting that in the MOU that they have community engagement from the beginning, and have more opportunity for input and activities within doing the art. And then I think the other thing is to think about is, you're exactly right. One person's, flowers is another person's, they hate them, right? And so, me personally, I like the public art that's more designy, right, and more abstract and more, sometimes you see things that are similar to MC Escher, right? You look at these walls, it's which way is this going, right? And there's just sort of interesting stuff. We saw a lot of that in Chicago when we went to the Vacant Building Conference, and there was a lot of talk about public art from Chicago. And they talked a lot about the reuse of vacant spaces, how the area was cleaned up after these public art pieces were put up, and how people visited these areas, and that most of the time restaurants and other things next to it benefited. And a lot of that data can't be necessarily aggregated, right? It's word of mouth, someone says, more people are coming to my restaurant. Is it because there's public art? Maybe not. Maybe just people got better reviews. So absolutely agree. We will definitely have more public input. And I also think, just given what happened last year, they had some fundraising issues, and I think that some of that groundwork that usually happens when Beyond Walls goes into community, it didn't really happen. And the timeline got really fast. And they have artists, they're booking artists now for this summer, obviously, right? And so everything was already in motion. And so Nueva stepped up, covered everything that had to be covered, but I think some of that pre-stuff needed to be done first. So we'll be doing that more. Because
I'm sure you're a pretty socially aware guy, and I'm assuming you saw some of this dialogue that took place on social media relative to that. And my takeaway from that is, I don't know who's right, who's wrong, and all of this. And, some of the things that they said, you had it ranging from, some people felt, certain symbols or different things were not things that they conveyed were in the community. And my only point was, why didn't that dialogue get to happen before the mural went up, right? Because then people can say, what I would like to see would be that there's an invitation of artists to come up with different ideas and different categories too. Personally, I would like to see at least one of the 5 be something really great about Holyoke. You know, just really, whether it's a thing of City Hall and the 150th or something really patriotic about Holyoke, you know, and maybe another category, something about America, and then maybe something about, you know, Puerto Rico or something, you know, just really or something about, you know, all the different nationalities coming together in Holyoke or something, you know, just all these type of really unifying community messages would be great. That would be my friendly feedback. But my point is, if we have a process that says we're soliciting out for these things and we're going to have a community meeting and talking about this, and then it's okay, now we have the feedback of what these will be, then once you actually show them, the community can see it.
Absolutely.
And I think if you build that into all the process, I don't think you run into any of those issues that were in the past. So
I agree, we're really hoping to, you know, I'd also like to, once we kind of get our schedule and stuff together, we'll have those community meetings for sure, be able to meet the artists, and I want to have some of the, you know, some of the lead. Al's amazing, the main guy from Beyond Walls, his team, Catherine, they're just great, and so I'd like to have them meet with them, come down to City Council and kind of inform you guys of how the process is going. So
great,
absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
I make a motion 14 and 15 both be approved.
I'll second it. How about 13?
Oh, it's 13?
Yeah,
13 was the master plan.
Oh, yeah, 13 as well.
Motion made second that we, as a package, adopt each of these transfers and recommend to the full city council next Tuesday. If there's no further discussion, seeing none, roll call. Councilor Tomlin?
Yes.
Councilor Jordan?
Yes.
Councilor Paulo? Oh, Paulo.
Yes.
Paulo, sorry, Will. I was doing pretty good tonight. And Councilor McGivern, yes. Okay. That recommendation will go next Tuesday. Aaron, thank you, and
Thank
we
you.
appreciate
Good
it
night.
because it's, I think we're a lot further along with cannabis impact monies, and a lot of it is a tribute to you and your office, and thank you.
We appreciate that. We want to keep you in the loop. Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Take care.
Motion to take item 9 off the table.
Second.
For discussion.
Motion made second to take item 9 off the table for
Would
discussion.
it be 9 and 10, actually?
9 and 10
9 and
as a
10
package.
as a package.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. 9 is the release and settlement agreement between the City of Holyoke with Travelers Insurance, and 10 is the money and the transfer appropriation into the, the proposal is insurance claimants, a settlement of $150K, $432,000, total is $432,000 into contract services claim settlements for the 432. This, continuing with our DPW portion of the agenda, Chris is with us, but is there anybody from the law department that wanted to talk about the settlement, or our auditor that wanted just to update us?
I think Chris can actually speak.
Chris, can you?
As to
or-
Yeah, I talked with, Lisa was unable to come, but I've been working with her
Mike
on this.
Bissonnette is here, and Chris, if you want.
Go ahead, Chris.
Okay, Chris,
Mike,
go
if you
ahead.
want to say something, you totally can.
No,
but,
go ahead, Chris.
So this project, the Gagliarducci was the company that damaged the sidewalk outside of the professional building on Dwight Street. It's been fenced and barreled off for 2 years now, I believe. And so this project was put out to bid, and the company named Campora, who's DCAM certified for this type of structural work, was the low bidder on the project. And so we have not entered into a contract with them yet. It's been pending this settlement that Lisa Ball has been working on with Travelers Insurance. So the language has gone back and forth, and this is the final agreement. And it includes the bid amount of $432,000 to repair the structural sidewalk and inside of the vault, inside of the basement of the old bank building. I think something to make clear about this is that Lisa and I worked on language to include essentially if there's additional scope items that need to happen that were unforeseen at the time that the engineering design was done for the structural repairs, such as if there's asbestos or things that could not have been known at the time that the design was done, that we are able to have scope changes and ask travelers for additional funding in order to pay the contractor for the additional work.
Chris, can you give us a little bit more detail as to the history or the actual incident and the damage and what was going on? I think a lot of
I
us
could do my best. I wasn't working for the city at the time, but my understanding is Gagliarducci is a construction company, was hired by Mass DOT to do work on Dwight Street. They misinterpreted the plan set, and there was actually a vault. There's vaults, all over downtown. And so the sidewalk slab that is, currently has plates on it and is fenced off is actually structural slab. So it had rebar in it, and Gagliarducci saw cut through that, making it no longer structurally sound, and it's a void space underneath the sidewalk. So although this vault is no longer being used,
this is the bank that's owned by the New England Farm Workers?
That's correct, yes.
I never knew why those barriers were up. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So they're actually not being used. So one might think we could just, fill the void under the sidewalk and build it up and repair it in a less expensive manner. But since this is a insurance claim, it's to go back the way that it was, exactly repaired in kind. So we are having to put back a structural slab as the sidewalk. And so that's essentially why the project is as expensive. But, the insurance is paying the settlement on this. So it's the city, the money's just going through the city to the contractor, and we're overseeing the projects in the engineering
So
department.
my only real question is Herbie Flores happy about this?
Probably.
You don't have to
I have
answer
no
that.
idea who that is. So
Oh,
I don't get the
Chris,
joke.
you're much too young.
Yes. The answer is yes.
Thank you, Attorney Bissonette. As long as Herbie's happy, then we know we're doing the right thing. But on a serious note, it sounds like a very good settlement if this work is going to meet all that needs to be done. And Chris,
The city's not out any money.
No.
the city's not out any money. Much appreciated.
First I thought it was.
Yeah.
First I thought the money. I said, wow, it's a lot.
Yeah.
Is there anything else to be added or any discussion?
I make a motion 9 and 10 be approved.
Motion
I'll
made
second that.
we approve 9 and 10 and allow this settlement to be put to good use. Roll call, Counselor Tomlin,
Yes.
Counselor Jordan,
Yes.
Counselor Powell,
Yes.
Counselor McGivern, yes. Once again, it passes, and our recommendation will go to the full city council next Tuesday. Thank you. Item 11.
Motion to take item number 11 off the table?
Motion made, second to take item 11 off the table.
Yes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? This is a request of a transfer from Highway HME $50,000 to trash recycling contract $50,000. Off the table, all those in favor? Any
Aye.
opposed? So moved. And I was told that we are ready to address this. We've had it for actually since December. And who will be the lead from the law department or the DPW?
Be me from the DPW. So we found out, that this was a previous agreement that was done by the previous administration and my predecessor. This is single stream recycling that is being dumped at WM. So we're trying to close out that contract for the year. So we need to transfer $50,000.
And close out the contract. Carol, when you say close out the contract, are we still using them?
Yes, we are.
Okay.
This is for fiscal year '23, so it goes until the end of the year, June 30th.
And I know you're a gentleman, but is this the type of contract you negotiate, or will you be looking to do some new negotiations with the?
Now, we'll be going back to the MRF on this.
Okay.
and do dual stream, because I think this was done due to COVID and the lack of manpower and the increased amount of recycling due to people being at home. So I guess this was a quick fix just to bring it to a single stream facility because the MRF does not accept single stream. So we're going back to what we should be doing and going back to dual stream.
Understood, and this is my memory, may not be correct. There also was the issue of what was happening in China with recycling of plastics. And
Correct.
the MRF kind of became, it was questionable whether the MRF was going to be worth still using it at that time. But certainly I think that's changed, or other things are happening nationally that makes it change, if I understand it correctly.
Correct. And right now for single stream, you're paying to basically get rid of the recyclables. You know, when we go back to dual stream, not that we officially switched, but from my understanding that my predecessor had to do a quick fix to get the recyclables off the street, and he did single stream. You know, dual stream, there'll be some kind of income back to the municipality.
A little money back, do the right thing as far as recycling goes, and it makes always made a lot of sense.
Yes.
Any discussion?
Yes.
Councilor Jordan.
Carl, so, and again, you're the new guy, so none of this is a reflection on you, but I had some questions and concerns that citizens had helped to educate me about, and I took it upon myself to get some further information. So, first of all, we were always doing dual stream for as long as I can remember. And then at some point, a decision was made to go to single stream, right? When do you know when the city was using single stream? Have you figured that out yet? And when we ended it and we're back doing dual stream?
From what I understand, this happened during the period of COVID, so it could have been
2020. Okay.
You know, so that's my understanding right now.
Okay.
So we always should be doing dual stream. We've never really gotten off. But like I said, the problem is that this was a quick fix.
Now, my question is, why did it need to be fixed? Like, when they say quick fix, that assumes that there's a problem. Why did we have to stop using dual stream? If you know.
Because from my understanding of the problem was that the manpower situation due to COVID, and also because the residents were at home now. You know, they were there during lockdown, and they had more recyclables on the street. So in order to pick up all the recyclables quickly, they put it all in one truck.
They put it all in one truck. Okay. I'm just trying to understand why, if you're at home versus you're at work or at school, you would have more trash. I don't understand.
Because you're getting more deliveries from Amazon.
I see. Okay. That makes sense. Okay. All right. So you'd have like more cardboard and that type of thing.
More and more plastics. You're spending more time at home than at work.
Okay.
You know, that bottle of water you drink at work, it's now at home.
I see. Okay, got it. All right, that makes so that caused it to go up, and we were using at one time a contract service to help out with the trash pickup, I believe, at one time. But okay, so they were overwhelmed, and they felt that if they just mixed it all into one, and then where were they bringing it when it was single stream? Because the MRF wouldn't take it.
With this contract here, I believe it's WM Industries, WM America.
WM America. Can we get a copy of this contract? I don't think I've been furnished a copy of this I was furnished with a copy of the new MRF contract, I believe.
Yeah, I think the copy of the contract should be in the package for this, but if not, I could forward it to you.
Yeah, if you could. I'm not seeing it in my packet here attached to item 11, but yeah, I don't. It just all we see is the financial transfer. So we're back with MRF now, right?
Yeah, we're in the process of it because we have to sign the agreement.
Okay. somebody gave me a signed agreement recently, and I think it was signed in December. I wonder if that's the same contract. Now, let me ask you another question, because I had heard somebody had told me at one point a lot of our recycle was just going to the landfill during not too long ago. Is there any, has your review of this shown that any of our recycle actually not even gone to these people, but perhaps has just gone right into the landfill?
I am not aware of that.
Can you investigate that?
Sure.
Okay.
Definitely.
Because whenever decisions like this get made, there should be, I wasn't on the city council at the time that this decision was made, but I would hope that, and I'm sure you would, if you're going to make a major policy decision to change around something like recycling, you would talk to the mayor, you would talk to the city council and say, hey, this came up, or, there's some rationale as to why you're doing something differently. Because citizens have expectations of, I know myself, I'm a big on recycling. I put all my plastic out, I put all my cardboard and all that, and every 2 weeks. And, we think that's where it's actually going, right? And if that's not what we're doing, then we need to be transparent with the public that, if this stuff is all going into a landfill or it's all getting mixed up and, it's going somewhere else, I think the public has a right to know what's going on. So,
Definitely.
yeah. All right. So if you could let us know too, if any of the recycling actually went into the landfill from 2020 to now, I would like to know about that, and get us a copy of this contract, and that will be good. So thank
Okay.
you. Thank you, Carl.
Thank you very much.
Any further discussion?
Make a motion.
Make a motion to approve the transfer?
Motion made second to approve, adopt the transfer. Roll call, Counselor Tallman?
Yes.
Counselor Jordan?
Yes.
Counselor Powell?
Yes.
Counselor McGivern? Yes. Okay, Carl, that'll go to the city council next Tuesday, but thank you and appreciate it. We got one more, I think, DPW.
Motion to take item 12 off the table?
Motion made second to take item 12 off the table. It's request of TNC Rideshare, $8,788 to other contracted services, the same amount. Off the table, all those in favor? Any opposed? So moved. I'm not sure if I'm right about DPW. Hang on a minute.
I don't think so, no.
No, this is Valley Bike.
Valley Bike, is that, who'd that be?
My favorite. Carl, Carl, we thank you very much. A good inaugural run. We'll talk about the overtime stuff, and but I think we're in good shape, and we appreciate you and Chris being here, and thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Have a
you.
good night.
Have a good night.
Take care. Yep. Bye-bye.
Was anybody?
I think we were supposed to keep Aaron. Tanya, do you know anything about this? I put it in the wrong place on the agenda. My fault.
Yeah, I can kind of give you the lowdown if you like, but it does belong to the planning
Blake?
department. So this rideshare account was set up because of the Lyft and Uber rideshare assessments from the state. We receive a payment every June from the state, depending on how many rides people take. I can't remember exactly what. It's 0.0065% of whatever it is that they make. In June of 2022, we did receive a check for $5,000. Usually they're around $5,000 or $6,000. And we have been paying this particular invoice for 3 years out of this account. It's really the only thing we've been using the account for. The invoice is for $8,788, and Aaron Vega would like the appropriation to pay this invoice once again.
We have enough money in the account to pay it?
Yeah, there's $29,318 in there, and after we pay this bill, it'll be $20,530.
And this looks like this is our annual fee. I think we do pay a fee to have this bike program around town.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Talk about that, yeah.
The city of Northampton is still the lead.
Yes, everything has remained the same.
And my editorial comment is still Valley Bike is a profit company.
Yep. And we're paying extra by the way, too. Do you get a copy of the 8788? Like, people steal bikes or break anything or do any of that, we're on the hook for all that.
I've never seen any invoices or anything come through. This one is actually less than we've paid in previous years. We've paid like $9,900. I don't get the breakdown, but planning may. If you want, I can send an email to Aaron and see if he gets a breakdown of exactly what the charges are for.
Yeah, and maybe you could ask them for a copy of the contract, since this is other contracted services. If they could furnish that to us by Tuesday, the breakdown of the 8788 and a copy of the current Valley Bikes contract.
Okay.
So we can figure out how they came up with that number.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you. So I'll make a motion to approve it, but by Tuesday, hopefully we'll have the.
I'll second that.
Motion made second to approve the transfer request. Roll call, Counselor Tomlin.
Yes.
Counselor Jordan.
Yes.
Counselor Powell.
Yes.
Counselor McGivern, yes, passes. We'll go to the city council, and hopefully the additional information will catch up to us. I think it's an annual thing. We know most of it, but it's a good question.
And then we got the chief of police for two more.
Yeah, I think someone's going to owe the chief of police a lot after tonight.
Oh, geez.
Unless Sergeant Hart joined us.
Motion to take item number 16 off the table.
Motion made second to take item 16 off the table. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. This is the annual or biannual Shannon Grant. It's a request that under Mass General Laws 44, Section 53A, we accept the provisions and establish a fund or method appropriate for the accounting of the receipts and resources connected. This year's grant is $566,355.26. There are no matches. Chief, thank you. And I know people have said that the chief of police always goes first in the finance committee. After tonight, they're not going to be able to say that anymore. No. But we appreciate your patience. And I know John Hart and you forward a spreadsheet, I believe, of a big part of the Shannon Grant isn't just about the city. It's about a number of different partners within the city that share this grant. We just happen to be according to the state, only way to get it is the go through entity. I'm talking too much, Chief. You want to walk us through it?
Right. You kind of hit all the points there. It's a multi-partner grant. Ourselves, the Boys and Girls Club, the Sheriff's Department, Mass Hire. I think it's here on I can start reading it off for you. Chicopee Boys and Girls Club is also in it. And the sheet we sent you breaks those down of the $566,355.26 is the total amount. And then the different divisions, if you want me to go through each one of those, I can. The police department's share of that is $154,126.
Thank you. And if I remember, yourself and Sergeant Hart in the past have told us each of these, the Boys and Girls Club, Chicopee Boys and Girls Club, each of these partners, there is a go-to person that works closely, and I don't want to say analysis. I want to say a checks and balance on the money that's paid is accordingly to each of the partners. Am I right?
Correct.
And the reason I asked that is, I think we
also, Joe, the state does an independent analysis as well. So.
Okay, thank you. That part I forgot, but because I know it's important because they're asking us to be the go through, and city does get a nice chunk of change, but there's a lot of work involved with the partners and a lot of good partners that put this money to very good use. I've had a number of conversations with Eileen Kavanaugh, and certainly the Boys and Girls Club not only needs this, but they understand the importance of using it appropriately. It's quite a grant when you look at the numbers, and quite a grant the way it's spread out through a number of different partners. And you can never say enough about the sheriff, both Coachy, and what they do in the community with their workforces.
Yep. Appreciate the very detailed breakdown, Chief. Thank you.
Any further discussion?
I make a motion, item 16 be approved.
A second.
Second to adopt item 16 and refer that to the full city council. Roll call. Counselor Tomlin?
Yes.
Counselor Jordan?
Yes.
Counselor Pello?
Yes.
Counselor McGivern, yes. One more for the chief.
Motion to take item number 17 off the table.
Motion and second to take item 17 off the table for discussion. This is under Mass General Laws 44, Section 53A. The council accepts the provisions of Marquardt Ford Holyoke Police Department equipment donation, estimated value of $10,000. Similar to the grant process, all gifts to the city have to be accepted and approved by the city council. Chief Marquardt just did this with the fire department, and unbelievable. Can you just tell us what they're doing for the police department?
Absolutely. This one is always fun to talk about because I get to talk about my victory again over the fire department. About a 3-to-1 ratio in sales, just to put it out there. Anyway, what we decided in conjunction with Marquardt, we're very appreciative of Marquardt holding that event. It was a great event. And our portion of it is we decided to use it to basically outfit all of our officers with a tool that is a multi-purpose tool that they can carry right on their belt. It has several functions. You know, some of the more notable is a knife to cut like seat belts, a punch to punch out a window that's, you know, if they need to get into a car under an emergency or get someone out of a car, rather than, you know, trying to break a window with a nightclub or something like that. This is like a punch that's spring-loaded that'll just shatter the glass. And this will allow every officer to have one of those distributed to every officer and, you know, carry that with them. It also has other, you know, small tools on it like a screwdriver and attachments like that, flyers, things that, you know, you'd be surprised how many times on calls, little things like that, doors, certain things you need to use to get into or around something. It's another tool for them to utilize to help them for emergency situations or even sometimes routine situations. But we just felt that it was, you know, something that normally we don't, you know, budget for. Marquardt was gracious enough to come up with this money. And in my talks with Mike Marquardt, he kind of hoped that the money would be used, that we could give something to the officers that they could all use and that would benefit not only them but the public. So this is what we came up with. We felt it was a good idea. In the past, we used it for tourniquets and blood clot stuff. So, you know, along those same lines, just another tool for them to put on their belt, and it comes with the case and everything. They can carry it right with them, and I just feel it was a great idea. And again, I thank Marquardt for the donation, because without it, you know, not saying we couldn't have done it, but it's not, probably wasn't something that we normally would have budgeted for. So I appreciate the chance and to participate in the cook-off, and you know, I also got a trophy, so that was great too.
Well, you know, the cook-off was impressive, and we're glad to hear your version, because the fire chief's version was a little different when we talked about the donation for the fire department. And there seems to be more than one trophy going around, or maybe someone's exaggerating.
Right. Well, you know, I had sold so many meals that I ended up donating some meals over to the fire department so that they could have and you know, we donate them here as well. You know, it was his first time. He's a new chief. He'll learn. Maybe he'll do a little better next year.
I love it.
It was all in good fun. We had a great time, and you know, I thank the fire chief in seriousness. It was great. It was a great turnout for both sides, and you know, it's all, and that also gave, I forgot, there was a donation made from our sales to in my case, to the Boys and Girls Club as well. So That was another $1,000 that went to the Boys and Girls Club for them to use. So it just was a win-win all the way around. It was a great event. And, you know, I told them maybe the fire department should go against the DPW next year. They'll have a shot with that.
Oh, the new guy. No, but in all seriousness, thank you and both chiefs for what you do. And of course, what Mark Hart does as one of our fine corporate citizens. And the Lug Nut Cafe is open every day, not just for these charity events. And it's quite a place to go for a quick breakfast in the morning or even sometimes for lunch before they close. But great job, Chief.
Thanks, Chief.
Any further discussion?
Make a motion to accept the grant.
We allow and
from
accept
Marquette.
the grant from Marcotte.
The donation.
To be used the way the chief has proposed it.
Yep.
Roll call, Counselor Tomlin.
Yes.
Counselor Jordan.
Yes.
Counselor Powell.
Yes.
Counselor McGivern, yes. Unanimous, goes to the city council. Chief, thank you, and I guess it goes without saying, now that you were last, you're gonna have to go back to the top of the ranks, despite all those department heads that complain you were often going first.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you. Either way, I don't mind.
Thank you,
All
Chief.
right, have a good night.
All right, thank you.
We have one final item, it's actually just housekeeping.
Motion to take item number 20 off the
Second,
table.
Item 20 off the table. This has been in the committee, but I believe it's been complied with. Gaston Electric take all the necessary steps to end the gas moratorium. And Councilor Jordan originally was the maker of this order, sponsored it, and we had a great news from the Gaston Electric with the addition of the tank out in West Holyoke was part of it.
Yes, sir. And the council unanimously supported the resolution, so didn't the mayor, and the G&E did great job to get right on top of it. And we've got a plan now to end the gas moratorium and put the new LNG tank in, and everyone lives happily ever after.
Fantastic.
Amen.
Motion that's complied with. Roll call, Councilor Tomlin.
Yes.
Councilor Jordan.
Yes.
Councilor Powell.
Yes.
Councilor McGivern, yes. Motion complied with. They'll just come out of committee for housekeeping next Tuesday. Let's make that a motion we all want to hear.
Motion adjourned?
Motion made a second to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We stand adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Good night.
Well done. Big agenda, but
Have a good night.
Appreciate it.
We got through it.